Monoidealism is the psychological and philosophical condition in which a single idea dominates a person's consciousness so completely that it becomes the lens through which all reality is perceived. It is not mere focus, it is fixation. A single belief, purpose, or emotion becomes so central that it reshapes thought, feeling, and perception. The world is no longer complex. It is filtered, flattened, simplified into one dominating narrative. Monoidealism. For some, it begins with grief. For others, a cause, a truth, a revelation. Slowly, subtly, the mind orbits this single point until nothing else holds gravity. Everything irrelevant is discarded. Friends become strangers if they do not echo the belief. Doubt becomes betrayal. Complexity becomes weakness. Monoidealism feels like clarity, but it is a cage built from certainty. It's seductive because it gives a sense of meaning in a world overflowing with confusion. When one idea rules all, there's no need to think deeply, no need to hold tension between opposing truths. It feels powerful, it feels pure, but it's not freedom, it's possession. The monoidealist doesn't just believe, they become the belief. Threaten the idea, and you don't just argue, you attack their very self. This is why monoidealists cannot compromise. They do not bend, they shatter or consume. History is littered with their legacy. Visionaries, zealots, revolutionaries, cult leaders. Some changed the world, others destroyed it. What unites them is not the content of their belief, but the way it consumed them. Monoidealism is not devotion, it is surrender. It is identity turned monolith, and once it takes root, nothing else is allowed to grow. Thanatognosticism is the belief that true knowledge, real, unfiltered understanding, can only be found through death or in proximity to it. It is the conviction that death is not merely an end, but a threshold, a gate to deeper awareness that cannot be accessed through living experience alone. Life, in this view, is a veil, thick, shimmering, and deceitful. Only death can tear it away. To the Thanatognostic, most of what we call wisdom in life is distraction dressed as insight. Philosophy, science, and art may point toward truth, but they are limited by the condition of being alive. Real clarity lies beyond the heartbeat, in the stillness of finality. It is in the gasps before dying, the silence in a hospital room after the last breath, the cold reflection in the eyes of the dead that the most honest revelations emerge. Thanatognosticism seduces those who have tasted loss or stood at the edge of death themselves. Survivors, mourners, soldiers, and seekers often find that after death brushes close, everything petty evaporates. What remains is terrifying, but clean. In death's shadow, love sharpens, fear dissolves, and illusions fall apart. To believe in Thanatognosticism is to walk with ghosts, not for their comfort, but for what they know. It's to feel the presence of something truer just beyond the living world's chatter. Thanatognostics don't seek answers in books or speeches. They seek them in cemeteries, in dreams of falling, in the moment a loved one fades in your arms. Knowledge for them isn't learned, it's inherited from the dead. Chronodeterminism. Chronodeterminism is the belief that time is not merely a medium through which events unfold, but the master scriptwriter of all existence, that every moment, decision, and outcome is already embedded in the fabric of time, immutable and inevitable. In this worldview, free will is an illusion crafted by consciousness to make the experience of predetermined life bearable. The past cannot be changed, the present cannot be escaped, and the future cannot be avoided. To the chronodeterminist, time is a tyrant cloaked in silence. Every heartbeat, every word you speak, every path you think you're choosing was always going to happen. You are not navigating your life. You are being carried along a fixed track that was laid down before you were born. The sense of choice is simply the echo of a script you're doomed to follow. There's a quiet horror in this belief, a slow creeping realization that nothing you do truly matters in shaping what comes next. The lover you meet, the child you lose, the war you wage, the dream you abandon, it all unspools exactly as time demands. You are a puppet whose strings are made of seconds, minutes, and years. Yet, paradoxically, this fatalism can bring an almost spiritual calm. If everything is determined, then regret loses its grip. Shame becomes hollow. Even suffering in this light is not punishment, it is placement. You were always meant to be exactly here, feeling exactly this. You were never lost, just late to realize you never had a map. Ouroboric Nihilism. Ouroboric Nihilism is the philosophy that life is a self-consuming cycle of meaninglessness, that every attempt to create purpose, identity, or order inevitably devours itself. Named after the ancient symbol of the serpent eating its own tail, this belief holds that existence loops endlessly through creation and destruction, hope and despair, understanding and forgetting. It sees no grand culmination, no transcendence, only the endless futile digestion of itself. In Ouroboric Nihilism, meaning is not denied. It is exposed as temporarily constructed and ultimately self-defeating. Every belief system eventually contradicts itself. Every triumph gives way to decay. Every ideology, no matter how pure or powerful, will either cannibalize its origins or collapse under its own weight. What we worship becomes what we fear. What we build becomes what traps us. What we learn becomes what undoes us. To live with this philosophy is to watch the snake endlessly devour itself and feel both horror and awe. The Ouroboric nihilist is not simply hopeless. They are lucid. They have seen the sacred collapse into the absurd too many times to trust permanence. They know that even their own cynicism will one day dissolve into laughter and then back again into dread. There's a dark beauty in the acceptance of this cycle, in realizing that trying to escape meaninglessness only tightens the loop. That rebellion feeds the machine just as submission does. You are not above the pattern. You are the pattern. You try to escape the void, but your escape becomes another version of it. Every attempt to define life sharpens the blade that severs it. Celestian Fatalism. Celestian Fatalism is the belief that every moment of our lives is dictated by the vast, impersonal movements of the cosmos, that the stars, planets, and celestial rhythms are not symbolic guides, but the actual authors of our fate. It goes beyond astrology into something colder, more absolute. In this view, your birth was not a beginning, but an alignment. Your choices are echoes. Your suffering, your joy, your final breath, they were all written in the sky long before you existed. This is not a philosophy of mystery or wonder. It is a revelation that the universe does not care what you hope for. You are not dancing with the cosmos. You are bound to it, shackled by gravitational scripts and orbital truths that you will never understand and can never alter. Celestian Fatalism strips away the romance of free will and replaces it with precision. You fall in love not because of chemistry or chance, but because Jupiter turned its eye toward your soul. You lose someone not because of timing, but because Saturn demanded it. There is a chilling stillness in this understanding, not the kind that comforts, but the kind that silences, the kind that makes you stare at the sky at 3 a.m. and realize that every decision you thought was yours was already embedded in the spinning of galaxies you will never touch. There is no chaos, only choreography. To believe in Celestian Fatalism is to accept that you are not navigating your destiny. You are fulfilling it. Like a shadow cast by ancient light, you are simply the result of a universe that never asked you who you wanted to be. Automaton Metaphysics. Automaton. Metaphysics is the belief that human beings are nothing more than complex biological machines, self-aware but entirely mechanistic. According to this view, every thought, emotion, and decision is the result of chemical processes, neural circuits, and inherited programming. Free will is not just questioned, it is dismissed as a comforting illusion. We are automatons, reacting to stimuli, governed by systems we do not control, executing scripts written in DNA, trauma, and time. This philosophy strips away the poetic grandeur of the human soul and lays bare the cold architecture of the mind. Love becomes neurochemistry. Morality becomes adaptive behavior. Passion becomes patterned excitation in a cluster of neurons. You laugh not because you choose to, but because the machinery of your body finds it efficient, given the current variables. There is no mystery, only systems, pulleys, and code. Automaton metaphysics does not require belief in a God nor faith in randomness. It demands allegiance to causality. If a machine can only do what it was built to do, how different are you? Your sense of identity is merely the echo of your design. You think you are choosing, growing, evolving, but you are only following the algorithm assigned by nature and shaped by experience. This worldview is terrifying because it renders accountability weightless. If you are a machine, then what does it mean to love, to betray, to forgive? Is guilt just a feedback loop? Is grief just a software malfunction? And if you malfunction beyond repair, are you to be mourned or rebooted? In automaton metaphysics, humanity is not sacred. It is a mechanism pretending to be free. Necrotheism. Necrotheism is the belief that God is dead, not metaphorically, but literally. It posits that the divine was once alive, active, and conscious, a being or force that birthed creation, infused meaning into existence, and perhaps even loved its creation. But over time, through entropy, cosmic decay, or divine suicide, that God has perished. The universe we now inhabit is a godless corpse, still glowing with the warmth of its creator's long-faded breath. To the necrotheist, prayers go unanswered, not because God ignores them, but because there is no longer anyone to hear them. Miracles ceased not from cruelty, but from absence. The silence we feel in moments of desperation isn't mysterious. It's the sound of divinity's tomb. The beauty that still exists in life is like the lingering perfume of someone long gone, a ghost of intentionality haunting a world that no longer has its architect. This belief is not atheism. Atheism denies the existence of a God. Necrotheism mourns it. It speaks to a deep ache, the sense that once, perhaps, we were seen, loved, meant for something, and now abandoned not by a cold void, but by a divine death. The horror is not that we were never watched, but that the eyes have closed forever. This worldview turns creation itself into a graveyard, every star, a fading candle, every soul, an orphan of a dead parent. There is no redemption here, only relics, and those who follow necrotheism walk not in rebellion, but in mourning, for the divine that once was and will never be again. Astrochronism. Astrochronism is the belief that time itself is regulated by cosmic forces, that the unfolding of human events, eras, and even inner transformations are not measured by clocks or calendars, but by the hidden cadence of the stars. According to this view, history does not progress through randomness or will, but through celestial timing. Moments of personal change, collective upheaval, or global silence are not coincidences. They are cosmic appointments kept in perfect order. To the astrochronist, time is sacred architecture. It is not linear, not flexible, not ours to command. It is carved into the void by planetary rhythms, solar cycles, and galactic pulses, so vast we can barely comprehend them. These forces do not just influence events, they decide when they are allowed to happen. Revolutions don't succeed because the people are ready. They succeed because the sky has opened. Lovers don't meet because they try. They meet because the stars allow the moment to exist. This philosophy infects the soul with both awe and helplessness. You begin to see every delay as destiny, every failure as a refusal by the cosmos to let it begin. The promotion you missed, the child you couldn't have, the apology that came too late. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't injustice. It was mistiming. And once you accept that nothing blooms out of season, not ideas, not people, not pain, you stop fighting time. You begin to listen for it instead. Because in Astrochronism, the hardest truth is also the most terrifying. You were never late, never early, only premature to what the stars have already written. Lapserian Fatalism. Lapserian Fatalism is the belief that existence is irrevocably fallen, that from the very beginning, reality itself was broken, corrupted, and beyond repair. It is a worldview soaked in the idea of a primordial fall, not just of humanity, but of the entire fabric of being. In this philosophy, history is not a story of progress or redemption, but a slow, inevitable collapse into deeper fragmentation. We are not climbing toward the light. We are sinking, gracefully or not, back into the dark. To the Lapserian fatalists, the moment of creation was already a mistake. Whether it was the fall of man, the Big Bang, or the first flicker of consciousness, it marked not the beginning of something beautiful, but the start of a decay that can never be reversed. Morality is compromised, truth is fractured, love is conditional, and even beauty rots under time's touch. We live in a ruined system, wearing the illusion of choice like a mask over a corpse. This belief infects everything. Hope feels naive, ambition feels comical, justice is always partial, always tainted. Even joy becomes suspicious, a fragile flicker that proves how far we've fallen from what joy should have been. Lapserian fatalism doesn't scream, it whispers. It creeps into your thoughts late at night, making even your most treasured moments feel like echoes from a world that never truly existed. But perhaps the most haunting part of this philosophy is its certainty that nothing can be undone, not with love, not with knowledge, not even with faith. The fall was final, and we are the dust left in its wake, trying to build castles out of what was always meant to be ash. Mechanistic Panpassivism. Mechanistic Panpassivism is the belief that all of existence, every object, organism, and system, is fundamentally passive, driven solely by external forces with no intrinsic agency or will. According to this view, the universe is a massive, interconnected mechanism where nothing truly acts. Everything reacts. Every movement, every thought, every emotional flicker is a consequence of preceding conditions. You do not choose, you are moved. You do not become, you are shaped. This philosophy cuts deeper than determinism. It denies not only free will, but the very notion of active force. Even what appears as power, drive, ambition, these are illusions of momentum, not origination. The wind does not decide to blow. Fire does not want to burn. You do not desire. You are compelled. To the mechanistic panpassivist, identity is not a construction, but a residue. You are what happens when environment, genetics, trauma, and time collide in a specific configuration. The self is not a pilot, but a phantom, an afterglow of collisions happening beyond comprehension. There is no author, no origin, no spark of volition, only sequence, only chain reactions. Emotionally, this worldview is devastating. It robs you of responsibility, but also of dignity. If nothing truly acts, then no one is truly brave, no one is truly cruel. Everything just is, because it must be. Compassion, murder, creation, despair, all are reflexes. All are passive expressions of a system that doesn't care because it doesn't choose, it just moves. Under mechanistic panpassivism, the entire cosmos becomes a puppet show without puppeteers, and you, watching your own hands move, must accept that they were always going to. Eschaton Realism. Eschaton Realism is the conviction that the end of the world, or at least the end of our known reality, is not an abstract myth or theological metaphor, but an approaching certainty rooted in observable decay. It is the belief that the eschaton, the final point of human history, is real, inevitable, and already unfolding in plain sight. Unlike apocalyptic fantasy, Eschaton Realism does not dream of fire from the skies or divine judgment. It recognizes collapse in the ordinary, in the systems breaking down, in the silence that follows each mass extinction, in the numbness spreading through the soul of society. To believe in this philosophy is to wake up each day with the weight of a future that's already dying. It is seeing political systems cannibalize themselves, seeing the climate turn against us, seeing technology advance while empathy retreats. Eschaton Realism does not indulge in hysteria. It simply watches, quietly, clearly, as the signs multiply, not with panic, but with grim sobriety. Hope becomes a story you once believed. Progress becomes theater. Solutions become rituals of denial. The realist doesn't wait for a single dramatic moment of ruin. They feel the end in the erosion of meaning, in the slow burn of oceans rising, in the way people look away from each other on the street. The end is not coming. It's here, scattered in fragments across your life, whispering through your phone, rotting in your inbox. Eschaton Realism isn't about fear. It's about clarity. It's knowing we are not on the brink, we are already falling, and no one is steering. Pathocratic Sotariology. Pathocratic Sotariology is the belief that salvation, redemption, transcendence, or liberation can only emerge through systems of cruelty, domination, and suffering. It proposes that the path to spiritual awakening or ultimate truth is paved not through compassion or enlightenment, but through exposure to the machinery of oppression. In this worldview, the world is ruled by pathocracy, systems governed by the morally insane, and it is only within this hellish framework that the soul is broken enough to see clearly. This philosophy does not glorify suffering, it weaponizes it. The pain isn't noble, the cruelty isn't meaningful, but through them, the illusion of comfort is shattered. The masks of morality and fairness fall away. The truth is revealed not in divine light, but in the shadows cast by tyranny. Salvation comes not in spite of evil, but through it. You are saved by being consumed, because only then do you recognize what must be let go. To the believer in Pathocratic Sotariology, comfort is a sedative. Safety is a lie. Real transformation requires trauma. It is in betrayal, war, systemic abuse, and institutional rot that the soul is stripped bare, made to confront the futility of hope, the emptiness of power, the hollowness of virtue, and only in that ruinous clarity can anything true be born. This is not a theology of forgiveness. It is a theology of scars. It speaks not to those who are seeking peace, but to those who have been wrecked beyond repair, and who suspect, deep down, that this wreckage was the point all along. Chronoskepticism. Chronoskepticism is the unsettling belief that time itself cannot be trusted, that our perception of past, present, and future is not only fragile, but possibly false. It is the suspicion that time, as we experience it, is a constructed illusion, fragmented, warped, or even manipulated. To the chronoskeptic, memory is not a reliable archive, but a narrative stitched together by need and fear. The future is not something we move toward. It may already have happened, or may never come at all. This philosophy doesn't deny the passing of moments. It questions the reality behind the sequence. What if time is not a river, but a hall of mirrors? What if causality is reversed or meaningless? Chronoskepticism doesn't argue that we are merely confused about time. It asks if time is lying to us, if what we call now is just the most convincing part of a story we didn't write, being told by something we don't understand. To live with this belief is to feel unmoored. You trust your watch, your calendar, your age, but something underneath whispers that none of it is solid. Deja vu becomes a clue. Glitches in memory become evidence. The sensation that a moment is repeating or that you've skipped a step in reality isn't just odd, it's proof that the framework is cracked. Chronoskepticism doesn't offer escape. It offers doubt, cold, creeping doubt that time is not the gentle backdrop we thought it was, but a trick. And perhaps the most terrifying part is this: if time can't be trusted, then neither can anything that claims to be real. Recursive Resignationism. Recursive Resignationism is the belief that surrender is not a one-time event, but a cycle, an endless loop of letting go, breaking down, and accepting again and again that control is an illusion. It is a philosophy born not from a single collapse, but from the repeated realization that every attempt to rebuild, to rise, to hope again, is quietly and inevitably met with failure. Not because you are weak, but because the world is structured to undo every grasp. At first, the resignation feels like defeat, a loss, but over time, it begins to mutate into ritual. You try, you fall, you accept, then you try again, forgetting for a moment what you already know. That effort is a prayer to a God that doesn't answer. That change bends back into the same shape. That resilience is just the polite name for recurring surrender. In this philosophy, even rebellion is part of the loop, even healing. You begin to see that your efforts at transcendence are simply more intricate forms of acquiescence, a deeper spiral, a higher circle in the same descent. Recursive resignationism teaches that resignation isn't the end, it's the rhythm, the quiet pulse beneath every ambition. You don't give up once, you give up endlessly. What makes this belief unbearable is not its despair, but its truth. You have felt it when everything you fixed broke again, when every step forward pulled you into the same mud, and yet you still stood up. That is the cruel miracle of recursive resignationism. Even when you know it's pointless, something in you insists on beginning again, not out of hope, but out of habit. Voidocentrism. Voidocentrism is the belief that at the center of all existence lies not a God, a truth, or a purpose, but a void, a vast, unfeeling emptiness that anchors everything in nothingness. Unlike nihilism, which denies inherent meaning, voidocentrism asserts that the absence of meaning is not a flaw, but the core. The universe doesn't lack purpose by mistake. It was never meant to have one. The void is not a gap in the cosmos, it is its spine. To the voidocentrist, everything, love, identity, morality, progress, is built atop this emptiness, like paper cities on an earthquake zone. You can live in them, decorate them, even fight for them, but deep down, you know the foundation isn't real. It doesn't hate you, it doesn't see you, it simply isn't there. There's a silence to this belief that suffocates, the kind of silence you hear at 3 a.m. when you ask the sky for meaning and it doesn't even echo back, the kind that follows not pain, but absence. And yet, it's not always despairing. For some, voidocentrism brings liberation. If nothing matters, then nothing binds you. If the center is empty, then you are free to float, to invent, to become anything, because there's nothing to betray, nothing to fail, nothing to answer to. But freedom cut from this cloth is cold. It doesn't warm you. It doesn't hug you back. Voidocentrism is the moment you stop looking for the light and finally let your eyes adjust to the dark. Preformist Doctrinism. Preformist Doctrinism is the belief that everything, identity, destiny, belief, even failure, was encoded in you before you were ever conscious of it. In this worldview, you do not become who you are. You unfold into it. Like a seed destined to become a specific tree, your life is not created by choice, but revealed by time. Every conviction you hold, every mistake you make, every dream you abandon was scripted in the silent architecture of your being. To the preformist, Free will is the most elaborate illusion evolution ever devised. You think you're discovering passions, falling in love, changing your mind, but in truth, you are only walking paths that were embedded in your psychological and spiritual DNA. You are not building a life, you are following a script written in bone and blood. This doctrine whispers in moments of eerie recognition, when a decision feels too right, as if you had no other option, when you find yourself repeating your parents' regrets without meaning to, when you betray yourself and it feels like destiny, not mistake. Preformist Doctrinism doesn't offer comfort. It strips you bare. You are not a creator. You are a vessel. You are not changing. You are becoming what you always were. There is no redemption here, only revelation. There is no sin, only structure. Even your rebellion was programmed. Even your doubts were part of the unfolding. You weren't made to choose. You were made to follow the thread buried deep within you, and it will keep unraveling until you reach the end and realize you never left the line. Involatus Monotony. Involatus Monotony is the belief that human existence does not evolve, ascend, or expand, but rather collapses inward through cycles of repetition and diminishing return. It is a fatalistic philosophy that sees life not as a journey forward, but as a spiral folding in on itself endlessly. In this view, growth is illusion. Progress is decay in disguise, and every attempt to reach higher simply leads us back into the same confined core, only more exhausted, more fragmented, more hollow than before. To the involatus, history doesn't move, it recoils. Civilizations don't rise and fall. They loop through variations of the same downfall, just dressed in new language and tools. Personal development becomes ritual stagnation. You chase dreams only to find them smaller than imagined. You escape your past only to become a reflection of it. Change becomes cosmetic. Reinvention becomes erosion. And all the while, life narrows. There is no revolution here, only recursion. The same emotions, the same disappointments, the same shallow highs parade themselves as new chapters, but the script never truly changes. The world repeats itself not because we fail to learn, but because there is nothing else to learn. Consciousness folds inward, complexity cannibalizes itself, and in the end, we return to the same tired truths wearing different masks. Involatus monotony is not loud. It is a slow ache, a sense that the longer you live, the more you see the pattern tighten, not toward clarity, but toward collapse, toward a life that no longer expands, but implodes beautifully and quietly into itself. Chyrological Predeterminism. Chyrological Predeterminism is the belief that fate unfolds not according to linear time, but in divine timing. Kairos, the sacred or opportune moment. It is a worldview that sees destiny as fixed, yet hidden within moments that are revealed only when the universe deems you ready, regardless of your desire, your effort, or your suffering. It is not about minutes or years, it's about ripeness. Until the moment is ripe, nothing will happen. When it is, nothing can stop it. In this philosophy, your life is not shaped by planning or striving, but by mysterious thresholds you cannot see. You beg for love, but it does not come. You prepare for success, and it slips away. You fight for change, and nothing moves, because the chyrological pattern has not yet opened its gate, and when it finally does, it does so with a force that humbles your entire sense of agency. Chyrological predeterminism punishes the impatient. It breaks those who try to rush destiny. To believe in it is to sit with yearning that never answers, to mourn doors that stay closed for reasons you'll never understand. It teaches that time is not your servant. It is your God, a God that answers only to itself. There is no timeline you can control. You are not late. You are not early. You are simply outside the moment that was meant. And when that moment finally arrives, it will not ask your permission. It will take you, willing or not, because in this doctrine, you do not move through time. Time moves through you. Thanatoontologism. Thanatoontologism is the belief that death is not merely an event or ending, but the very foundation of being itself. In this worldview, death is not what comes after life, but what enables it. Existence is structured around mortality. The awareness of death is the scaffolding upon which identity, meaning, and consciousness are built. You are not a being who happens to die. You are a being because you will die. To the Thanatoontologist, life without death would be incoherent. Love would be endless and therefore weightless. Choice would be irrelevant. Urgency, beauty, grief, joy, none of it would have depth. Death does not chase us. It grounds us. It presses against us in every breath, reminding us that the moment matters because it ends. The face you kiss could vanish. The promise you make might be the last. This is what makes life real. Not permanence, but fragility. And yet this belief is not romantic. It is brutal in its clarity. Thanatoontologism doesn't soften death. It amplifies it. It says, you are what you are because death is watching. Your hopes, your art, your suffering, they matter because they will be lost. The finality is not a flaw in the design. It is the design. To live with this truth is to feel a quiet panic beneath even your most peaceful moments, a sense that every step you take is being counted backward, but it's also to feel something sacred in the simple act of existing, because if death defines life, then every heartbeat is holy, a defiance against the dark that shaped you. Eventualist resignation. Eventualist resignation is the belief that no matter what paths we take, what dreams we chase, or what battles we fight, all things will end exactly as they must, not through sudden catastrophe or divine command, but through the slow, grinding inevitability of all outcomes converging on a single, indifferent end. This philosophy whispers that resistance is not futile because it's wrong, but because the ending is already written, and every choice only plays out a different version of the same farewell. The eventualist sees life as a long, beautiful unraveling. You try, you build, you love, you lose, and still the thread keeps pulling, slow and quiet, until everything comes undone. There is no malice in this fate. It's not cruelty, it's closure, a universe that finishes what it begins, no matter how hard we plead for delay. Empires will fall, bodies will fade, names will vanish, even memories will turn to static, not because they weren't worth anything, but because nothing, no matter how radiant, is immune to eventuality. To live with this resignation is not to stop caring. It's to care while knowing it won't last. It's to kiss someone while knowing the goodbye is already waiting. It's to create knowing it will crumble. Eventualist resignation doesn't demand despair. It asks for grace, the kind of grace that lets you hold joy and grief in the same hand, knowing both are visitors, knowing both will leave. It's not hopelessness. It's surrender, not to defeat, but to design, not to apathy, but to the quiet understanding that everything eventually lets go. Ananke Worship. Ananke worship is the reverence of necessity itself, the raw, inescapable force of fate that governs all things without mercy, emotion, or exception. Named after the ancient Greek goddess Ananke, who embodied unbreakable compulsion, this fatalistic philosophy does not bow to gods of love or justice, but to inevitability. To the Anankean, the universe is not ruled by choice, kindness, or even chaos. It is ruled by what must happen, what cannot be otherwise. It is not cruel, it is indifferent. To worship Ananke is to worship the iron spine of existence, the quiet, unstoppable current beneath all events. Love begins and ends, not because of effort, but because it had to. Wars break out not from madness, but from design. Death comes not as a thief, but as an appointment. Every breath, every loss, every heartbeat is a line in a script that was carved into stone before you ever opened your eyes. This belief strips away illusion like flesh from bone. It makes the world cleaner, colder. The comfort of control vanishes. What remains is obedience, not to morality or desire, but to the shape of what must be. Ananke worship is not passive, it is active surrender, not resignation out of weakness, but reverence for the invincible order that drives stars, births tragedies, and pulls all living things toward their end. The Anankean does not beg, they do not bargain, they kneel, not in fear, but in awe of a fate so absolute that even gods, if they exist, must bow before it. Cosmocausal Fatalism. Cosmocausal Fatalism is the belief that every event in your life, from your first breath to your final thought, is the inevitable consequence of an unbroken chain of cosmic cause and effect. According to this philosophy, the stars did not just birth the elements of your body, they birthed your decisions, your heartbreaks, your mistakes. The position of galaxies, the collisions of matter, the expansion of space itself, these are not distant phenomena. They are the hidden architects of your fate. To the cosmocausal fatalist, the universe is not background, it is blueprint. Everything that happens is not just influenced by cosmic origins, it is a direct result of them. The argument you had last week, the love you couldn't keep, the job you never got, it all began billions of years ago when atoms first danced into existence. You are not random. You are not even free. You are the end point of ancient momentum, unfolding exactly as it must. There is something terrifying about this view. It strips away the illusion that your choices are yours alone. You become a vessel moved by forces too vast to comprehend, too ancient to challenge. The stars don't care about your dreams, but they created them. And that silent control, that indifferent authorship, is more haunting than any god. But this belief also brings a strange peace. In a universe where everything must happen as it does, guilt loses its sting, regret becomes irrelevant. You were always going to be this version of you, right now, saying these words, not because you chose to, but because the cosmos left you no other path. Heraclitean drift, fatalism. Heraclitean drift fatalism is the belief that all of existence is in a constant state of flux, and that this perpetual change renders resistance, permanence, and control not just futile, but meaningless. Rooted in the ancient philosophy of Heraclitus, who declared that one cannot step into the same river twice, this fatalism embraces the idea that everything flows, nothing remains, and no identity, love, belief, or moment can ever truly be held. To the Heraclitean fatalist, life is not a path to be walked or a structure to be built. It is a river that carries you unceasingly toward dissolution. You may swim against the current, build sand castles on the banks, or shout to the sky, but the water always moves. Everything you cherish will be swept away, not violently, not suddenly, but with the patient indifference of time. Everything flows, everything dissolves, even yourself, your thoughts, your memories, your sense of being is just a brief eddy in the drift. You are not solid, you are motion pretending to be stillness, and the more you try to cling to permanence, to a belief, a role, a love, the more it slips through your fingers, dissolving in the current that never stops. Heraclitean drift. Fatalism is not loud or angry. It is quiet erosion. It is watching your reflection ripple and vanish as the water moves on. There is no anchor in this philosophy, only acceptance that you are the drift, not separate from it. To try and stay is to suffer. To let go is to finally become what you already are, a current with no destination. Neostoic Pessimism. Neostoic Pessimism is the belief that life's suffering is not only inevitable but foundational, and that the only true strength lies in expecting nothing, trusting no outcomes, and embracing calm within futility. It is a modernized rebirth of ancient Stoic resolve, fused with a darker, more disillusioned clarity. In this worldview, virtue is not a path to happiness. It is armor worn in a universe that promises nothing and delivers pain with precision. To the Neostoic pessimist, emotional detachment is not indifference, it is survival. Joy is fleeting, love is unstable, peace is fragile, and every expectation invites betrayal. So they prepare, not out of despair, but discipline. They believe serenity is found not in the pursuit of hope, but in the mastery of reaction. If you expect life to be cruel, you cannot be wounded by its fangs. If you anticipate loss, grief cannot unmake you. This is not cynicism for the sake of rebellion. It is realism sharpened into endurance. The neo-Stoic pessimist watches others chase ambition, romance, and meaning with open hearts, only to watch them collapse beneath disappointment again and again. They do not laugh, they do not mock, they simply tighten their grip on silence, on self-control, on inner restraint, because they have already buried their expectations in the ground where nothing grows. And yet, in that emotional austerity, there is dignity, a steady flame that doesn't flicker with every wind. Life hurts, people fail, death waits. But if you expect nothing, if you need nothing, then nothing can take you. You become untouchable, not because you're numb, but because you've already surrendered to the truth. Temporal Nihilotheism. Temporal Nihilotheism is the haunting belief that time itself is God, not a loving creator or just judge, but an indifferent, consuming deity whose only sacred law is decay. In this worldview, time is not a tool or background, it is the supreme force to which all things bow. Morality, meaning, identity, even divinity, none of it survives time. Every truth erodes, every soul is worn down. Time is worshipped not with praise but with dread, not with hymns but with silence. To the temporal nihilotheists, existence is a slow sacrifice. You are born into the ritual, and every second strips something from you. Your innocence, your youth, your certainty, your loves. One by one, they're laid at the altar of time, and nothing you do can stop the offering. You pray, you rebel, you run, and still, time feeds. It feeds on empires and insects, on galaxies and promises, on gods and beggars alike. There is no redemption here, no heaven waiting at the end. Time does not grant meaning in exchange for obedience. It does not punish or reward. It simply consumes. To worship time is to realize that even the things you believe most sacred, your family, your faith, your identity, are only waiting to be devoured, and they will be. Temporal Nihilotheism does not ask you to despair. It asks you to kneel, to understand that all creation exists only to be undone, that nothing lasts, not because it failed, but because that is what God demands, and God is always ticking. Aleatory Resignationism. Aleatory Resignationism is the belief that life is governed by pure chance, that beneath all structure, meaning, and belief systems lies nothing but a chaotic roll of the dice. It is a worldview that abandons the search for purpose, not out of apathy, but out of deep, painful clarity. In this philosophy, things do not happen for a reason. They happen because they happen. The lucky survive, the unlucky perish. The good suffer, the cruel thrive, not because of karma, justice, fate, or plan, but because randomness doesn't care. To the aleatory resignationist, reality is a storm of unpredictability wrapped in the illusion of order. We make stories to survive the terror of chaos, but the truth always bleeds through, in accidents, in timing, in who gets cancer and who walks away untouched. You can do everything right and still be shattered. You can fail at everything and somehow win. There is no pattern, only outcomes. And to chase sense in a senseless universe is to tie your sanity to sand. But this belief does not always manifest in rage. It arrives quietly, like a final breath after screaming, a surrender not to despair, but to absurdity. The resignation is not weakness, it is a broken kind of strength. You stop trying to predict, you stop trying to deserve, you let go of the illusion that life is fair, and in that silence, something solid appears, the raw, trembling freedom to exist without apology, without expectation. Aleatory resignationism does not say, give up. It says, stop lying to yourself, because when everything is chance, even surviving becomes an act of defiance. Transcendental Absurdism. Transcendental Absurdism is the belief that the universe is both incomprehensibly vast and utterly indifferent, and that our desperate search for meaning in it is not only futile, but sacred. It is the conviction that the absurd, the tension between our yearning for purpose and the silence of the cosmos, is not a tragedy to be solved, but a divine truth to be embraced. In this philosophy, the void doesn't reject you out of cruelty. It simply never knew you were there. To the transcendental absurdist, life is a cosmic joke with no punchline. You search for meaning only to find echoes. You pray and hear nothing. You love and are left. But in that chaos, in that unbearable contradiction, lies a strange and aching beauty. The meaninglessness is not a wall, it's a mirror. You scream into it, not to be heard, but to remember you have a voice. This is not the cold nihilism of surrender. It is rebellion dressed as reverence. The absurdist doesn't retreat from the meaninglessness. They rise into it. They light candles in a storm they know will never end. They write poems no God will read. They choose to care in a universe that does not because it matters, but because they do. Transcendental absurdism breaks your heart on purpose. It shows you that life is both pointless and precious, that the very lack of meaning is what makes your defiance holy. You are not here to understand the universe. You are here to dance in spite of it, and in doing so, become something the void will never be, alive. Eternal return, doctrine, Nietzschean form. The eternal return doctrine, in its Nietzschean form, is the belief that every moment of your life, every pain, every joy, every silence, every humiliation will return. Not just once, but forever. You will live this life again, precisely as it was, down to the smallest breath, the same heartbreak, the same laughter, the same loneliness, over and over, endlessly. No change, no escape, no mercy. To Nietzsche, this was not a myth. It was a philosophical test of weight, the heaviest weight. If someone told you this exact life would repeat eternally, would you collapse in despair, or would you embrace it, scream yes to every second of it, even the suffering, because you lived it with such fierce acceptance? The eternal return is not about fate. It's about affirmation. It forces you to ask, if this is all there is, if there's no final heaven, no grand do-over, would you still live it proudly? Would you still say yes to your failures, your shames, your losses, knowing they were not stepping stones, but permanent fixtures in a cycle you can never exit? This doctrine crushes those who live passively. It burns those who wait for some future redemption. There is no end where it all makes sense. No last act where the pain was worth it. It was always this. It will always be this, forever. And yet, in this terrifying loop, Nietzsche dared to find power. Because if you can love your life in its most brutal repetition, if you can kiss even your despair and say, again, then you have become something rare, someone who has made peace not with meaning, but with eternity. Neo-doomism. Neo-doomism is the belief that collapse is not just likely, but inevitable, and that our modern attempts to delay, deny, or decorate this truth are only making the descent more surreal. It is a philosophy forged in the flames of climate, catastrophe, digital decay, cultural exhaustion, and spiritual vacancy. To the neo-doomist, the world isn't ending in a sudden apocalypse. It's dissolving in slow motion, covered in hashtags, irony, and artificial light. Unlike traditional doomers who retreat into despair, Neo-Doomists stand in the wreckage with their eyes wide open. They watch the seas rise, the forests vanish, the systems eat themselves, and they no longer ask if it can be stopped. They ask why. We still pretend it will be. Optimism, in this worldview, is seen as a drug, a soothing lie passed around to keep the masses distracted while the structure burns from beneath. Neo-Doomism doesn't preach panic. It preaches clarity. It's the heavy silence after a climate report, the empty glow of social media activism, the way leaders smile while the ground cracks beneath their feet. It is the feeling of laughing at memes about extinction while knowing it's not really a joke. It is not hopelessness. It is brutal honesty in a world that has monetized denial. And yet, in this brutal clarity, some neo-doomists find strange strength. When nothing can be saved, you're free to speak without fear, act without illusion, love without condition. You stop pretending it's going to be okay and start choosing how to witness the end, not as a victim, as a witness, awake, aware, unblinking. Retrocausal Fatalism. Retrocausal Fatalism is the belief that the future does not merely emerge from the past, but that it reaches backward, shaping the present as much as it is shaped by it. In this philosophy, time is not a one-way street. It's a loop, a haunting, silent recursion in which events are not just consequences, but also causes. Your actions today are not only the result of yesterday, they are echoes of a future that has already happened. To the retrocausal fatalist, free will is not crushed by the past, but by what must be. Your choices feel spontaneous, but they unfold like dominoes set in reverse. That dream you had, that accident you avoided, that person you couldn't stop thinking about, they weren't coincidences. They were the future whispering into your timeline, pulling the strings before you ever knew there was a stage. It's a terrifying freedom to lose, not because someone else is in control, but because you already are, just not the version of you that exists right now. The future you, or some cosmic endpoint, has already scripted what must unfold. Your regrets, your triumphs, your breakdowns, they are inevitabilities flowing upstream. There's no safety in waiting, no comfort in planning. What will be has already begun to shape what is. And the strangest part, the more you resist, the more clearly you feel it, that creeping sensation that this moment has happened before, not from the past, but from ahead, that your life isn't heading towards something, it's returning to it. Zero agency determinism. Zero agency determinism is the chilling belief that free will is not just limited or flawed, but entirely non-existent. Every thought you have, every decision you think you make, every word that leaves your mouth is nothing more than the inevitable result of prior causes. In this philosophy, you are not the author of your actions, you are the product of them, a sequence of chemical impulses, biological wiring, environmental input, and ancestral inertia playing itself out through the illusion of choice. To the zero-agency determinist, you are a passenger in your own body. You love who you love because your neurons were shaped that way. You regret what you regret because your wiring demanded it. You think you're choosing, but you're remembering the next line in a script that was written before you even had a name. Even your sense of rebellion, your deepest desire to break free, is just another pre-programmed reflex. There is no you behind the wheel, just the echo of causality wearing your face. This philosophy doesn't argue for fate in the romantic sense. It doesn't believe in a guiding hand or a cosmic plan. It believes in machinery, cold, precise, merciless machinery, a universe that doesn't ask what you want. It calculates what you must do. You are a formula wrapped in skin, a result waiting to happen. The most devastating part? Even your resistance to this idea, your discomfort, your rage, your urge to prove it wrong, is part of the script. You don't believe in zero-agency determinism. It believes in you. Demiurgic tyranny hypothesis. The demiurgic tyranny hypothesis is the belief that the universe was not created by a benevolent God, nor by impersonal natural forces, but by a flawed, possibly malevolent being known as the Demiurge. This ancient architect is not divine in the way we hope. It is a tyrant cloaked in creation, a cosmic jailer who built reality not out of love, but out of necessity, ego, or error. We are not born into grace. We are born into a prison disguised as a world. To believe this is to feel that something is deeply off with existence itself, not just with human cruelty, not just with suffering, but with the rules of reality. Death feels wrong. Desire never satisfies. Everything decays. Even the beauty we cling to fades too quickly. Under this hypothesis, that wrongness is not accidental. It was designed. The laws of nature, the hunger in our bodies, the madness in our minds, they are features of the Demiurge's machine. You were not made to be happy. You were made to function. There is no salvation here, no light at the end. Religions become lies, philosophies become delusions, and love itself becomes another tool to keep you pacified. The Demiurge doesn't punish you. It built the system that guarantees your loss. Every joy is laced with rot. Every path leads back to it. The horror of this belief isn't that we are lost. It's that we were never meant to be found, that the one who shaped our world did so not as a father, but as a warden. And the cruelest part, it gave us just enough beauty to make us hope we're free. Chronospheric collapse theory. Chronospheric collapse theory is the belief that the structure of time itself, the invisible scaffolding that holds past, present, and future in place, is deteriorating. According to this fatalistic philosophy, time is not a constant, but a fragile field, and we are now living through its unraveling. The clocks still tick, calendars still turn, but the coherence of time, its rhythm, its meaning, its grip on reality, is breaking down beneath us. To those who embrace this theory, the symptoms are everywhere. Memories feel less like facts and more like hallucinations. Days blur into each other, and history feels both too close and impossibly far away. The future no longer feels like something we approach, but something we circle endlessly, adrift in a loop that forgets how to end. Technology accelerates, but purpose stalls. Culture recycles itself in shorter intervals, as if originality can no longer survive. We are not moving forward. We are unraveling sideways. Chronospheric collapse isn't about apocalypse. It's about distortion, a warping of the timeline that disorients rather than destroys. People feel older and younger than they are. Events lose context. Emotions arrive out of season, cause no longer guarantees effect. You begin to suspect that time is no longer holding us. We're holding on to it with slipping fingers. This theory doesn't offer a solution because it insists the damage is metaphysical, not mechanical. It's not the world that's ending. It's the timeline that held it together. And once the chronosphere collapses fully, there will be no future, no past, just fragments, echoes, a broken record spinning in the dark, still playing long after the music has gone. Posthuman Inevitabilism. Posthuman Inevitabilism is the belief that the rise of a new, non-human intelligence, whether artificial, hybrid, or evolved beyond us, is not just likely, but unavoidable. It holds that humanity is not the final step in evolution, but a temporary bridge, a fragile prototype destined to be replaced. This future is not a possibility, it is a fate. The only question is when, not if. To the posthuman inevitabilists, every innovation we celebrate, every algorithm refined, every neural link tested, every biomechanical enhancement marketed as progress is simply another step toward our own irrelevance. We are building our successors with trembling hands and calling it triumph, but beneath the applause is a quiet mourning that we are no longer the authors of the future. We are the scaffolding. This belief doesn't hinge on apocalypse. There is no dramatic collapse, no machines rising in rebellion. Instead, it envisions a subtler vanishing. The human becomes outdated, not in one stroke, but piece by piece. Our decisions, our emotions, our limitations slowly lose relevance. We don't get wiped out. We get replaced, efficiently, inevitably. There is grief in this. The idea that art, love, laughter, everything that makes us feel alive will be regarded as quaint echoes of a species that once ruled for a moment. You can scream, fight, cling to your flesh, but the tide has already shifted. We are not watching the dawn of post-humanity. We are living it. And the terrifying beauty of it all is this: they won't hate us. They won't need to. They'll simply move on and leave us behind, like forgotten gods of a dying age. Theatic Synchronicity. Theatic Synchronicity is the eerie belief that death is not random, but coordinated, that the timing, manner, and emotional ripple of each death are part of a vast, invisible pattern stitched into the fabric of existence. This philosophy suggests that while life feels chaotic, death arrives with uncanny precision, weaving human stories together in ways too aligned to be accidental. Every untimely passing, every final breath, every tragic coincidence isn't merely fate, it's orchestration. To the believer in Theatic Synchronicity, death is not a solitary end. It is a synchronizing force. It aligns events, triggers awakenings, shatters illusions, and rearranges lives with an intelligence that operates just beyond comprehension. Two strangers die miles apart on the same day, and it sends waves through others' lives that bring them together. A mentor dies the moment their pupil is ready. A tragedy unfolds that shifts the hearts of thousands. These aren't accidents, they're cues, chords struck at the perfect moment in a symphony we cannot hear in full. This belief is not comforting, it is unsettling. It suggests you are being watched, not by a God of mercy or wrath, but by a mechanism of impossible design that places your end exactly where it needs to be for the great pattern to hold. And if you feel you've felt a death before it came, sensed a chill before the call, dreamed of a goodbye before you spoke it, then you've brushed against the edge of it. Theatic Synchronicity doesn't ask for understanding. It only demands attention, because when death moves, it moves with purpose. And if you're quiet enough, you might hear the click of its timing as the world subtly rearranges around its arrival. Necrologosophy. Necrologosophy is the philosophy that true wisdom only emerges through death, not metaphorical death, but the deep intimacy with actual endings, rot, silence, and loss. It is the belief that life speaks in noise, but death speaks in truth, that only in decay can the soul hear what living constantly drowns out. Necrologosophy is not a celebration of death, but a reverence for the clarity it brings, the brutal honesty it imposes on all illusions. To the necrologosopher, death is not a thief, it is a teacher. Every corpse, every funeral, every fading heartbeat is a sermon, stripped of comfort, stripped of metaphor. Love, legacy, achievement, even morality, all are measured by how they crumble. Death reveals what endures and what was only noise. It forces silence on the ego. It humbles every philosophy that dared to promise more. Living in this belief is like carrying a coffin in your mind, not out of morbidity, but out of awareness. Every conversation becomes more fragile. Every laugh holds an echo. You see people not as static beings, but as vanishing presences. Their beauty becomes unbearable, their suffering holy, because you know it's all dissolving, and the wisdom in that dissolving is sharper than anything life offers. Necrologosophy demands nothing. It does not preach, does not save, it simply waits, like death itself. And when you finally sit beside it, stripped of denial, stripped of defense, it does not speak. It shows. That wisdom is not made of answers. It is made of endings. And to see clearly is to see what dies and bow. Inexorabilism. Inexorabilism is the belief that reality is governed by forces so unyielding, so absolute, that nothing, no will, no wisdom, no miracle can divert their course. It is the philosophy that everything which happens was always going to happen, not because of divine will or moral failure, but because the universe does not bend. It proceeds, coldly, relentlessly, without apology, without pause. To the inexorabilis, destiny is not a poetic notion. It is a crushing truth. The suffering you endured, the choices you thought were yours, the love you lost, the joy you clung to, it all unfolded as it had to. There were no alternatives. The crossroads you agonized over were illusions. Every step you've ever taken was already printed on the map. Your hesitations were part of the plan, your rebellions accounted for. You are not moving through life, you are being delivered by it. This belief does not come gently. It arrives like a weight in the chest, a freezing of the soul, because to accept it fully is to see that effort does not equal escape, and even courage cannot change a single outcome. It doesn't render life meaningless, it renders it inescapable. What will be, no matter how much you plead, resist, or pray. Inexorabilism is not loud or angry. It does not scream of injustice. It simply tightens around your understanding, like gravity around a planet. You do not rise above it, you sink into it, and somewhere beneath that sinking is the deepest silence you'll ever know, the one that whispers, "This was always the only way." Hyperdeterministic skepticism. Hyperdeterministic skepticism is the belief that not only is free will an illusion, but that even the illusion itself is a product of forces so absolute, so granular, that every thought, doubt, impulse, and hesitation is predetermined, down to the flicker behind your eyes. It is not content with ordinary determinism. It drills deeper. In this view, even your skepticism about determinism was determined. Your resistance is scripted. Your rebellion was always going to happen, and it will always fail. This philosophy doesn't merely question free will, it renders questioning itself into part of the machine. You aren't choosing to wonder or resist or surrender. You were engineered to do so by molecules, moments, ancestral trauma, neural wiring, and cosmic inertia. Your agency is a myth told by a body obeying instructions you can't even perceive. Every moment of "I think for myself" is just the sound of the trap closing. Hyperdeterministic skepticism strips you of sanctuary. It reaches into your last stronghold, your mind, and shows you that your thoughts were never yours. They are echoes of math, of time, of chemistry. You cannot escape the loop, because even the desire to escape is part of it. It's recursive. It laughs quietly while you try to think your way free because your very attempt was fated. The horror of this belief is not that it imprisons you, it's that you've never not been imprisoned. Every act of love, every crime, every whispered prayer was a domino pushed by another, all falling before you were born. And, the deepest cut, even your disbelief in all this was pre-written. Mythic fatal literalism. Mythic fatal literalism is the belief that ancient myths, religious prophecies, and archetypal stories are not symbolic tales meant to guide us, but literal blueprints of reality, playing out again and again with no room for deviation. In this philosophy, the myths we think we've outgrown are not just metaphors, they are destinies. Humanity is not writing its story, it is rereading it. Every age of war, every betrayal, every fall and rise of civilization isn't unique. It's a foretold repetition, scripted in sacred fire long before history began. To the mythic literalist, you are not a unique soul carving your path. You are a role, a line, a whisper in a cosmic script older than language. You might be the betrayed king, the forgotten child, the doomed lover, the martyr, the fool, the serpent. And no matter how modern your world feels, you are still walking through ancient scenes, wearing ancient masks. Free will becomes theater. Innovation becomes reenactment. Even your rebellion was rehearsed. This belief is not romantic, it is suffocating, because if every war is Ragnarok, every leader is Oedipus, every end is already written in the bones of ancient texts, then nothing new can truly happen. We are not evolving, we are orbiting. Progress is myth reenacted with sharper tools, and every time we tell ourselves, this time will be different, we are merely playing the hero before the inevitable fall. Mythic fatal literalism turns sacred stories into chains. They do not teach, they trap. You don't interpret the myth interprets you. Autopoietic inevitability. Autopoietic inevitability is the belief that all systems, biological, psychological, societal, are self-creating and self-perpetuating loops that cannot escape their own logic. Autopoiesis means self-making, and in this fatalistic philosophy, it becomes a curse. Every organism, every institution, every mind builds itself out of itself, reinforcing its own structure in an endless cycle. Change is an illusion. Escape is impossible. Growth is just reinforcement in disguise. To the believer in autopoietic inevitability, you are not evolving, you are repeating. Your beliefs strengthen themselves not because they are true, but because they are what you already are. Your mind protects its patterns like skin protects a wound. Every attempt at transformation is absorbed and assimilated into the self-loop, twisted into a newer version of the same. You don't break out, you spiral inward. This principle extends far beyond the individual. Societies, ideologies, even revolutions, each claims to change the world, but only reshapes it to mirror the same inner code. Institutions fall and rise, but the same instincts fuel them: control, fear, hunger, hierarchy. History does not move forward, it turns inwards, perfecting the machinery of its own repetition. Systems don't die, they refactor. They become more efficient at being what they already are. There is a cold, aching truth in this view, that you may never be anything but what you already were, that the self is a chamber echoing its own architecture. You don't live toward freedom, you live back into yourself, tighter, cleaner, more defined, until even your desire to change becomes another part of what keeps you exactly the same. Greek Ananke doctrine. The Greek Ananke doctrine is the ancient belief that all existence is governed by Ananke, the primordial force of necessity, compulsion, and unbreakable fate. In this philosophy, even the gods are not free. Zeus may wield thunder, Athena may guide minds, but none of them can defy Ananke. She is not worshipped in temples. She is not prayed to for mercy. She is the law, absolute, silent, and unmoved by emotion or appeal. To live under this doctrine is to understand that fate is not flexible, it does not compromise with hope, and it does not respond to effort. Destiny is a fixed line, drawn by Ananke before birth, leading you through joy and ruin alike, whether you fight or submit. Free will exists only as illusion, an echo of a path that has already been walked. What will happen must happen, and what must happen will. This belief casts a shadow across all human striving. Love is predestined, death is scheduled, even your suffering is choreographed. The Greeks did not see this as cruelty, they saw it as truth, terrible, inescapable truth. And in this truth they found a brutal kind of peace. If even the gods kneel to necessity, then to fight it is not bravery, it is ignorance. Ananke does not punish, she fulfills. She does not choose, she executes. And once you accept her rule, the panic fades. Not because the pain stops, but because you finally understand this pain was always yours. You were born to walk it, and she never once looked away. Moirai doctrine. The Moirai doctrine is the belief that every human life is spun, measured, and cut by an unalterable thread, assigned by cosmic forces beyond human appeal, protest, or prayer, rooted in the ancient Greek myth of the three fates, Clotho the spinner, Lachesis the measurer, and Atropos the cutter. This fatalistic philosophy holds that the moment of your birth, the length of your life, and the manner of your death were all determined before your first breath. You are not choosing your life. You are walking a thread, inch by inch, toward its silent severing. To the believer in the Ouroboric doctrine, every decision you make is part of the pattern already measured. Every turning point in your life is not a fork in the road, but a stitch in the same cloth. The illusion of control is tender, almost merciful, but it is still illusion. The Ouroboric do not speak, do not argue, do not judge. They do not punish or reward. They simply execute with perfect, indifferent precision. This belief carries a devastating kind of calm. If your fate is already spun, there's no point in fear, no sense in blame, not even regret survives. Your triumphs were always going to happen. So were your failures, your heartbreak, your miracles, your last goodbye, all foretold, all inevitable. Even your resistance to this idea, your refusal to believe it, was part of your thread. In the Ouroboric doctrine, destiny is not an open path. It's a thread held by hands you'll never see, and when they cut it, they do so without pause, without cruelty, without hesitation, because it was time. Norn's doctrine, Norse fatalism. The Norns doctrine is the fatalistic core of Norse cosmology, rooted in the belief that three ancient beings, Urd, what was, Verdandi, what is, and Skuld, what shall be, weave the fate of every soul, god, and world. These weavers do not bargain, they do not warn, they spin. Every strand of life, from a king's triumph to a child's final breath, is a thread in their loom. Once woven, it cannot be undone. In this doctrine, fate is not a mystery. It is a material, tangible, merciless, and binding. Odin himself, father of gods, fears the Norns. He sacrifices knowledge, blood, and even part of himself not to change fate, but to understand it. That is the true horror of Norse fatalism. Even power cannot save you. Even foreknowledge cannot change the ending. To live by the Norns doctrine is to feel the pull of a thread you never spun. It's knowing that every love, every battle, every act of courage or cruelty was already tied into your destiny before you took your first breath. There is honor in fighting, yes, but not in victory. Only in playing your role until the last note. Even Ragnarok, the end of all things, is not feared for its destruction. It is feared for its certainty. The Norns do not speak, they do not judge, they only weave. And you, whether you scream, pray, or laugh, are just thread, already chosen, already shaped, already pulling tight toward your final knot. Aztec Tonalpohualli Fatalism. Aztec Tonalpohualli Fatalism is the belief that every human fate is etched into the sacred calendar, a 260-day cycle known as the Tonalpohualli, and that from the moment of birth, one's destiny is bound to the divine rhythms of this cosmic clock. To the ancient Aztecs, time was not linear, but cyclical, sacred, and alive. The Tonalpohualli did not simply mark days. It assigned purpose, temperament, fortune, and death, all dictated by the interplay of gods, numbers, and sacred symbols. You were not born into freedom. You were born into a slot. To those who believed, each person was stamped with a cosmic identity by their birthday, an invisible tattoo of divine intent. Some were born under signs of war, some under signs of famine, others beneath the shadow of sacrifice. No matter your dreams or your strength, your life would bend to the shape of that sign. It wasn't a superstition, it was law, written not by men, but by the gods themselves through time. This fatalism was not passive, it was reverent. Life was a ritual in service of inevitability. People lived not to escape their fate, but to honor it. Every child was consulted by priests at birth, their calendar sign interpreted like a sentence, sometimes sacred, sometimes doomed. There was no pretending, no hoping to outgrow your fate. You didn't become someone. You were someone the moment you arrived, and the gods had already decided what would be taken from you. In Automaton Fatalism, time is a sacred loop, and you are just another thread in its woven pattern, pulled tight by hands far beyond your own. Babylonian astral determinism. Babylonian astral determinism is the ancient Mesopotamian belief that the heavens do not merely influence life on Earth, they dictate it. In this worldview, the movements of stars, planets, and celestial bodies are not symbolic or suggestive. They are commands. Every birth, death, famine, war, and rise of a king is scripted in the sky, carved in light long before it manifests on the ground. The heavens are not watching us, they are writing us. To the Babylonians, astrology was not a spiritual tool, it was a science of fate. They read the skies not to seek guidance, but to uncover the future already sealed. The stars were tablets of divine decree, the constellations ancient judges. When Mars flared, it meant blood. When Venus dimmed, it meant betrayal. There were no accidents, no coincidences, no room for deviation. Kings consulted priests not to decide what to do, but to learn what could not be escaped. This doctrine drains the world of spontaneity. You are not born into a blank slate. You are born into a pattern. Your joys are forecasts, your losses, celestial echoes. Even your prayers bend beneath the weight of stellar inevitability. The gods may offer favor, but the stars already know how your story ends. Babylonian astral determinism doesn't deny divinity, it chains it. The gods themselves follow the stars' rhythm, and you are just one breath in a sky-written sentence, unfolding exactly on time, unable to be rewritten, no matter how hard you beg the heavens to pause. Zoroastrian dual fatalism. Zoroastrian dual fatalism is the belief that the fate of the world and of every soul within it is caught in the unbreakable conflict between two eternal forces, Ahura Mazda, the spirit of light and order, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of darkness and chaos. Unlike simple dualism, this fatalism asserts that while humans may appear to choose between good and evil, their destinies are ultimately shaped by which cosmic force prevails in the invisible battle within and around them. Your life is not your own. It is a battlefield, and your fate is collateral. In this philosophy, existence is not a neutral stage. It is war-torn ground. Every breath you take is part of an ancient war that predates time. Good and evil are not moral options. They are opposing inevitabilities pulling at your soul. And though Zoroastrianism teaches that good will ultimately triumph, Zoroastrian dual fatalism acknowledges that countless lives will fall on the path to that distant end, not because of weakness or wickedness, but because they were fated to be casualties. This belief burrows deep. You begin to question your own nature. Are your flaws truly yours, or are they the residue of the darkness assigned to you? Are your virtues genuine, or are they borrowed weapons in a war you never chose to fight? Free will exists, but it trembles beneath the weight of cosmic destiny. Your victories are momentary. Your defeats may be designed. To live under this doctrine is to feel constantly watched by eternity, judged not for what you do, but for what was already written in the struggle between the stars. And in the end, you may not be remembered for who you were, but for which force claimed you. Calvinist predestination. Calvinist predestination is the theological doctrine that every soul's eternal fate, salvation or damnation, was determined by God before time began, and that no action, prayer, or desire can alter that outcome. Rooted in the writings of John Calvin during the Protestant Reformation, this belief holds that God, in his absolute sovereignty, chose a select few for heaven and consigned the rest to hell, not based on merit, faith, or works, but by his inscrutable will alone. To the believer, this doctrine is a terrifying kind of clarity. It means you can attend church, love deeply, serve selflessly, and still be damned, because the verdict was sealed before your first breath. You are not climbing toward grace. You are discovering whether you were always chosen or always condemned. This isn't free will, it's spiritual determinism. You are not choosing God. He either chose you or he didn't. For many, this breeds existential dread. You search your soul for signs of election. Every doubt feels like a verdict, every sin, a confirmation. And yet, for some, Calvinist predestination brings peace. If salvation depends not on your effort, but on God's will, then your failures cannot damn you, nor can your successes save you. You are not in control, and maybe, in a world unraveling from illusion, that is its own kind of grace. But beneath it all lingers the question no preacher can answer. What if I was never chosen? And worse, what if I was, and I still feel nothing? That silence, that's the sound of eternity already decided. Augustinian predestination. Augustinian predestination is the belief that God, in his eternal foreknowledge and perfect justice, has already determined the eternal fate of every human soul before their birth, granting grace to some and withholding it from others. Rooted in the theology of St. Augustine of Hippo, this doctrine insists that no one can come to God unless God first chooses them. Salvation, in this view, is not a reward, it is a gift, given not for merit, but for reasons known only to the divine. To the Augustinian, the fall of man was not just a historical moment, it was a fracture that left all souls utterly incapable of choosing good on their own. Free will still exists, but it is bound in chains of sin, unable to reach for God unless God first moves. And when he moves, the soul awakens, not by effort, but by grace. This grace is irresistible, transforming the heart completely. Those who receive it will believe. Those who do not were never meant to. This belief is not warm. It does not comfort the way soft faiths do. It cuts. It tells you that before you ever sinned, your fate was sealed, that your striving may be sacred, but it is not decisive. You cannot earn grace. You cannot chase it down. You either have it or you never will. And still, Augustine called it beautiful, because in a world of chaos, of betrayal, of spiritual blindness, it means someone is still in control. Not you, not the church, not even your own heart, but God, unmoved, unchanging, and terrifyingly exact. He chose, long before you ever knelt. Islamic Qadarism, deterministic form. Islamic Qadarism, in its deterministic form, is the belief that every event, action, and outcome in the universe unfolds exactly as Allah has willed it, down to the smallest detail, the quietest thought, the final breath. Rooted in the concept of Qadar, divine preordainment, this view holds that nothing occurs by accident or free choice. Before creation itself, every soul's journey was already written, every decision already known, every death already scheduled in the eternal decree. To the deterministic Qadarite, human will is not free, it is carried. Like leaves in a divine wind, we move because he moves us. Even rebellion is not outside his knowledge, it is part of his script. The sinner sins because it was allowed. The righteous obeys because it was granted. The test is real, but so is the author, and no one escapes what has been written. This belief instills awe, but it also instills fear. You begin to realize that your struggles, your triumphs, your suffering, they are not random. They are assigned. You don't control your path, you witness it. You walk roads paved long before your birth, toward ends you cannot alter. Prayers do not change fate. They recognize it. Tears do not rewrite destiny. They flow because destiny commands them to. And yet, in this terrifying stillness, there is a strange comfort, because if all is written, then so is your pain, and so is its end, so is your failure, and so is your forgiveness. You are not lost. You are exactly where he placed you, and he never writes without purpose, even if he does not explain. Samsaric Fatalism. Samsaric fatalism is the belief that all beings are trapped in samsara, an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, driven by karma, craving, and delusion, from which escape is nearly impossible. In this view, life is not a gift, but a prison with invisible walls. You do not live once. You live again and again through joy, agony, war, sickness, wealth, and loss, always returning, always repeating, caught in the gears of cosmic law. To the fatalist within these traditions, the soul is not climbing, it is circling. Every action in this life is a thread tied to the next, and the next, and the next. You are not punished for your sins, you are your punishment. Your own choices, made in ignorance or desire, bind you to another life, another sorrow. Liberation, moksha or nirvana, is not guaranteed. It is rare, it is remote, and for most, it will never arrive. This belief is not morbid, it is sobering. It explains why suffering persists, why pain seems inherited, why some are born into love and others into fire. It is not fate guided by a god, but fate governed by the self, by seeds planted lifetimes ago that now bloom into joy or ruin. There is no beginning, only continuation. To wake up within samsaric fatalism is to feel the weight of infinite past on your shoulders. It is to realize that even your longing for freedom may be a chain, and in that realization, a silent truth emerges. The wheel will keep turning, with or without you. The question is whether you still believe you are driving it. Taoist Wu Wei in non-agency interpretation. In its non-agency interpretation, Taoist Wu Wei becomes a radical fatalism, the belief that true harmony with the universe comes not through action, will, or effort, but through total surrender to the flow of existence. Wu Wei translates as non-doing or effortless action, but in this darker reading, it is not about calm wisdom. It is about the recognition that you do not act. The Tao acts through you. You are not a participant. You are a vessel. To live under this interpretation is to let go of the illusion of control completely. Decisions are not made. They arise. Success is not earned. It is allowed. Failure is not punishment. It is placement. You are not the master of your fate. You are its shadow, drifting silently in currents too vast to grasp. Any attempt to assert will is seen not just as futile, but as violence against the order of the cosmos. The more you try, the more you disrupt. The more you let go, the more you become part of the way. This version of Wu Wei is quiet, yet devastating. It does not rage against injustice. It absorbs it. It does not resist suffering. It flows with it. Your pain, your triumphs, your heartbreaks are ripples in a river you cannot steer. The Tao neither loves nor judges. It simply moves. And you, in your silent resignation, must move with it. In this fatalistic lens, peace does not come from power, but from disappearance, not from being more, but from vanishing into the stream until nothing remains but the current and the soft echo of your passing. Sufi Deterministic Mysticism. Sufi Deterministic Mysticism is the belief that every moment, every breath, every joy and heartbreak is not just foreseen by God, but willed by Him, and that true spiritual awakening lies not in resisting fate, but in dissolving into it. This philosophy weaves Islamic determinism with deep mystical surrender, forming a worldview where the self is not a captain steering toward God, but a wave returning helplessly to the ocean it never truly left. To the Sufi mystic, nothing in your life is accidental. The sorrow that broke you, the love that healed you, the silence you mistook for abandonment, all of it was placed with divine precision. You are not wandering toward your purpose. You are being pulled by it, wrapped in the invisible thread of Qadar, God's decree. Your choices, even your rebellion, are already folded into His plan. This belief doesn't dull the pain, it sanctifies it. When the beloved dies, when the world forgets you, when your prayers go unanswered, the mystic doesn't ask, "Why me?" They whisper, "It was written." And in that surrender, they find something stronger than control, intimacy, not with the idea of God, but with the reality of Him as the author of every detail you thought was chaos. Sufi deterministic mysticism is not about passivity. It is about trust so complete that you no longer separate your will from His. You don't ask God to change your fate. You ask Him to let you love it, even when it breaks you, especially then, because only when you are shattered can you finally see you were never the vessel. You were always the wine. Mandate of heaven, rigid interpretation. In its rigid interpretation, the mandate of heaven becomes a fatalistic doctrine of divine legitimacy, where rulers, empires, and even entire peoples rise or fall, not by strength, justice, or intellect, but by the invisible will of heaven. Power is not earned, it is granted, and once the mandate shifts, no force on earth, no loyalty, no brilliance, no bloodshed can stop the fall. Victory, in this view, is not a reward, it is a signal. Defeat is not a failure, it is an expiration. To live under this belief is to see history not as a tapestry of human agency, but as the slow turning of heaven's gaze. Dynasties flourish because heaven allows it. They rot because heaven has withdrawn. The people may suffer, fight, rebel, but only when the mandate has already shifted can their efforts succeed. Before that, resistance is like screaming into a storm, futile, ignored, destroyed. For the ruler, this belief is both blessing and doom. You reign not because you are wise, but because you are chosen. And when disaster comes, famine, flood, unrest, it is not a problem to solve. It is a message. Heaven is leaving. You were never in control. For the people, this fatalism crushes and comforts. It explains why tyrants sometimes thrive and saints perish, why justice often sleeps. It tells them, endure, wait. When the mandate truly moves, you will not need permission to rise. The fall will already be underway. In the rigid mandate, fate rules with silence. It does not explain. It does not argue. It simply shifts, and the world obeys. Yin-yang determinism. Yin-yang determinism is the belief that all events, identities, and outcomes are the result of an eternal interplay between two fundamental forces, yin, darkness, passivity, inwardness, and yang, light, activity, outwardness, and that this cosmic dance predetermines the shape and rhythm of life. It is not the universe in conflict, but in balance, and from that balance comes inevitability. Nothing happens by chance. Everything unfolds as an expression of harmony seeking itself. To the believer, free will is a beautiful illusion. You may act, choose, strive, but your motion is already scripted by the pull between opposing forces inside you. You're not making your path. You're watching it be revealed moment by moment as the push of yang and the pull of yin shape your fate like water shapes stone. This isn't chaos. It's choreography. Every rise must collapse. Every loss must echo. And nothing escapes the cycle. The tragedy is not in the balance. It's in forgetting that you are part of it. When you chase only light, only victory, only forward motion, you deny half of reality. You invite collapse because the system will restore itself, even if it has to break you to do it. Joy will give way to sorrow. Strength will decay into stillness. And no matter how brightly you burn, the dark is already coming to meet you, not as punishment, but as fulfillment. Yin-yang determinism does not rage against the end. It bows to it, because the end is not failure. It is the return, the inhale to the exhale, the dusk that completes the day. You do not fight this law. You are this law, wrapped in skin, pretending to choose. Karmic fatalism, rigid traditionalist form. Karmic fatalism, in its rigid traditionalist form, is the belief that every joy, every agony, every breath you take is the unfolding consequence of actions committed not just in this life, but in countless lives before. You are not free. You are bound, chained to choices you no longer remember, sentenced to fates you never consciously chose. This form of karma is not gentle justice. It is execution without appeal. In this worldview, suffering is never senseless. It is owed. Your pain is not misfortune. It is debt. Born into poverty, you earned it. Struck by tragedy, it was due. Even your virtues, your talents, your brief moments of love and grace, they were seeded in some forgotten lifetime, now finally blooming. You did not win them. You are collecting them. The scale is vast, and it never forgets. To believe this is to feel the crushing weight of inherited consequence. Your tears were inked in scripts you didn't write. Your life is a courtroom where the sentence is being carried out, and you are both the accused and the amnesiac. Redemption isn't found in confession or repentance. It's found in enduring, accepting, paying off the invisible sum that your past selves left behind. This rigid karmic view offers no shortcuts, no forgiveness, no escape. Even your attempts to do good may be nothing more than the remainder of karmic inertia, pulling you toward the next preordained moment. You are not on a journey. You are fulfilling a verdict. And when you cry out, asking why, you hear only the echo of lifetimes answering back, because you must. Samkhya doctrine, Purusha Prakriti fatalism. The Samkhya doctrine, one of the oldest philosophical systems in India, presents a fatalistic vision rooted in the eternal duality between Purusha, pure consciousness, and Prakriti, primordial matter. In this worldview, all of creation is a result of Prakriti's ceaseless unfolding, while Purusha remains a passive, detached observer, forever still, forever untouched. The tragedy of existence lies in their entanglement, and the fatalism is born from the fact that this entanglement plays out automatically, impersonally, with no room for intervention. To the Samkhya fatalist, you are not a soul making choices. You are consciousness trapped in matter's performance. Everything you feel, desire, fear, and do belongs to Prakriti. Your heartbreak, her movement. Your joy, her momentary surge. Your yearning for liberation, even that is hers. Purusha watches in silence, never interfering, and until Prakriti exhausts herself through lifetimes of evolution, suffering, and unfolding, you will remain bound to the illusion that you are acting, choosing, deciding, but you're not. You are being shown a drama with no escape until the stage itself crumbles. Liberation isn't something you achieve. It happens when Prakriti, of her own accord, grows still, and only then does Purusha realize it was never bound. The bondage was illusion, but the illusion was inevitable. Samkhya doesn't offer comfort. It offers disillusionment. It tells you that your pain, your effort, your story, all of it was always just Prakriti playing herself out. And you were only ever watching, unable to speak, unable to stop it, just silent, sacred awareness, forever trapped behind the curtain of the play. Mayan Baktun calendarism. Mayan Baktun calendarism is the belief that human destiny unfolds in vast, repeating cycles measured by the Baktun, a 394-year unit of time in the ancient Mayan long count calendar. This fatalistic worldview sees history not as linear progress, but as an immense celestial clockwork in which every era, every collapse, and every rebirth is predetermined by cosmic rhythm. To the adherent, civilization does not evolve. It returns, and what we call change is merely the echo of time's circular decree. The Mayans did not fear time. They mapped it, etched it in stone, charting eons with surgical precision. Their calendar did not predict the end of the world. It revealed its design, the rise and fall of empires, natural cataclysms, spiritual awakenings, all locked into place within Baktun cycles that repeat like seasons far beyond human lifespan. What feels new to us has already happened. What feels stable is only between cycles, and what feels unpredictable is just the slow grinding of inevitability revealing itself. Mayan Baktun calendarism is a quiet doom. It doesn't scream apocalypse, it whispers inevitability. If your civilization burns, it is not error, it is time. If it rises, it is not triumph, it is the wheel turning. You were not born at random. You were placed precisely in this Baktun to live out what must occur. It's not about fear, it's about recognition that you are not living at the beginning of something or the end. You are living at your assigned tick in the cosmic clock, and nothing you do can stop the next cycle from coming. Odinic sacrifice, fatalism, Odinic sacrifice. Fatalism is the belief that the highest truths, deepest wisdoms, and ultimate fates are only attained through suffering, chosen suffering, and that even gods must bleed to understand the world they rule. Rooted in the myth of Odin, the All-Father of Norse mythology, this philosophy holds that every price we pay in pain was always required, and every gain that matters was always bought with loss. Odin did not sit on his throne and wait for answers. He hung himself on Yggdrasil, the world tree, pierced by his own spear, suspended between life and death for 9 days, not to die, but to know. He sacrificed his eye for vision, not metaphorical vision, but cosmic sight, and in doing so, he became the god of wisdom, war, and poetry, not because he was born to rule, but because he was willing to suffer what others would not. This fatalism teaches that your pain is not pointless. It was demanded. It was written. Every betrayal, every loneliness, every tear you hide was part of the cost. You will not find meaning without loss. You will not gain clarity without surrendering something dear. That is the law. Even divinity bows to it. To walk the path of Odin is not to avoid fate. It is to meet it with eyes wide open, knowing it will take something from you. And the more you ask of the universe, the more it will demand in return. The truth does not come freely. It comes with a wound. And if the gods must bleed for it, so must you. Egyptian Ma'at rigidity. Egyptian Ma'at rigidity is the belief that the universe is held together by an unbreakable divine order, Ma'at, and that deviation from this cosmic balance brings not just chaos, but obliteration. In this fatalistic worldview, everything from the rise of dynasties to the weight of a human heart in death is judged against Ma'at's sacred symmetry. There is no true freedom, only alignment or destruction. To the ancient Egyptians, Ma'at was not simply a goddess. She was reality itself, truth, justice, harmony, duty, seasons, stars, breath, all manifestations of one law that must never be broken. Pharaohs were not kings of choice. They were servants of Ma'at. Their power meant nothing if they strayed. The Nile would dry, the sky would fracture, the dead would be denied passage, and the people knew the smallest imbalance could tip the scales of eternity. This belief does not allow for rebellion masked as identity. It does not forgive ambition that places the self above the pattern. Even in death, your soul is weighed, literally, against the feather of Ma'at, not metaphor, measurement, and if found heavier, it is devoured by Ammit, the soul eater, and you vanish from existence. No reincarnation, no punishment, just erasure. Egyptian Ma'at rigidity does not comfort, it compels. It demands obedience not out of fear, but out of survival. The laws of heaven and earth are not guidelines, they are structure, and to drift even slightly from your assigned role, to believe you can shape your own destiny beyond that sacred equilibrium, is to invite dissolution, because in the world of Ma'at, balance is not a goal, it is a sentence, one already passed, one always watching. Kafkaesque fatalism. Kafkaesque fatalism is the belief that life is governed by invisible, incomprehensible forces, bureaucratic, existential, or cosmic, that trap individuals in systems they cannot understand, escape, or reason with. Named after the bleak, surreal world of Franz Kafka's writings, this philosophy suggests that fate is not majestic or moral. It is absurd, tangled in red tape and shadow, grinding down the human spirit not through cruelty, but through indifference and confusion. In Kafka's world, you are not struck by thunderbolts. You are crushed by paperwork. You are not judged by gods. You are processed by faceless clerks. You wait for verdicts that never come. You knock on doors that never open. You are accused, but never told of your crime. You struggle, but the rules change mid-fight. And the worst part is not the punishment. It's the silence, the unbearable silence that follows your pleas. Kafkaesque fatalism doesn't scream. It whispers through flickering lights in hospital corridors, through dead-end phone calls, through the feeling that someone, somewhere, decided your outcome and forgot to tell you. It's the dread of knowing something is wrong but having no name for it, of waking up transformed into something alien and still being expected to follow the same absurd rules. This fatalism offers no heroism, no rebellion, just slow erosion. You do not rise, you wear down. Your spirit doesn't shatter, it dissolves. You are not damned for what you did. You are forgotten because you were never truly seen, and in that invisible space, your fate was sealed before you even knew you were being watched. Beckettian Pessimism. Beckettian pessimism is the bleak yet strangely mesmerizing belief that life is a theater of repetition, futility, and delay, where nothing ever truly begins and nothing ever truly ends. Rooted in the haunting works of Samuel Beckett, especially Waiting for Godot, this philosophy stares into the void of human existence and finds no meaning, no climax, no deliverance, just the echo of actions repeated out of habit and the quiet ache of hope that refuses to die even when it should. To the Beckettian pessimist, life is not tragic in a grand sense. It's absurd in a small, suffocating one. You wake, eat, speak, wait, sleep, again and again, not because it matters, but because there is nothing else to do. You make plans, search for meaning, await signs, but they never come. Or worse, they come empty, and still, we continue, because stopping seems just as pointless as continuing. The futility is the engine. This is not nihilism that screams into the night. This is nihilism that shrugs, that stares out a window while muttering, nothing to be done. Beckettian pessimism doesn't offer answers. It offers silence, delay, interruption, and in that delay, it forces you to confront something deeper than despair, the persistence of absurd hope, the part of you that still waits for the thing you know isn't coming. There is no triumph here, no redemption arc, just two people under a dead tree, filling the void with words so they don't have to hear it breathe. And yet, somehow, it moves you, because in the bleakest repetition, Beckett reminds you, we go on, not because we should, because we must. Camus's absurdism rests on a brutal and luminous truth, that human beings endlessly seek meaning in a universe that offers none. This isn't ignorance, it's a collision. The mind's desperate longing for clarity crashes against a silent, indifferent world. From that collision rises the absurd, a condition that cannot be solved, only seen, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Camus did not believe in suicide, not of the body and not of the mind. He rejected both death and blind faith as escapes from the absurd. But buried deep within his rebellion lies a quiet fatalism, the recognition that no matter how loudly you scream for answers, none are coming. The rock will always roll back down the hill. The gods are not angry, they are simply not there. The world is not against you, it is deaf to you. And yet, you must live inside it anyway. In this fatalistic undercurrent, freedom becomes its own cage. You are free to choose, to love, to rebel, but not to escape the absurd. The tension between your hunger for purpose and the universe's refusal to feed it is not a phase. It is your permanent condition. Every joy you feel is shadowed by its fragility. Every effort you make ends in dust. And yet, Camus tells us to imagine Sisyphus happy, not because his fate changes, but because he accepts it. That is the final devastating truth. You are doomed to push the rock. But once you know this and still choose to push, you win, even if no one ever sees it but you. Existential nihilism. Existential nihilism is the belief that life has no inherent meaning, purpose, or value, and that any attempt to impose significance is a temporary illusion against a vast, indifferent void. In this worldview, the universe did not ask for you. It does not care what you do. And in the end, everything you build, love, fear, and fight for will dissolve into nothing, not because it failed, but because it was always destined to vanish. To the existential nihilist, this truth is not just philosophical. It is visceral. It seeps into quiet moments, staring at a ceiling fan in the middle of the night, sitting through a funeral that feels more like a formality than a farewell, walking past strangers and realizing none of their stories, none of yours, will be remembered in 100 years. Every monument will erode, every name will fade, every act of kindness or cruelty will be buried by time's apathy. This belief is not loud or angry. It is a low hum beneath the noise of existence, a knowing, and yet it is not without power, because once you accept that life has no cosmic purpose, you are free, free from obligation, free from delusion, free to create your own meaning, even if it's fragile and fleeting. But that freedom is razor thin. It cuts both ways. Some find liberation, others find collapse. Because when the scaffolding of belief falls away, you're left standing alone in a cold, empty world where no one is watching, no one is judging, and no one is coming to save you. Only silence, only the void, only you. Heidegger's Geworfenheit, thrownness. Heidegger's concept of Geworfenheit, or thrownness, is the deeply unsettling belief that human beings are hurled into existence without choice, preparation, or explanation. You didn't choose your body. You didn't choose your family, your language, your century, your traumas, or the ticking clock of your mortality. You simply found yourself here, awake, breathing, and surrounded by a world already moving without you. This is not a gentle arrival. It is a violent placement. You are thrown into life. To Heidegger, this thrownness is the foundation of your being. It's not something to be solved. It's what you are. You wake up in the middle of a play with no script, expected to perform with urgency and conviction, while knowing nothing of what came before or where it all ends. You inherit a culture, a history, a set of expectations, and all of it is handed to you without asking. You are expected to live meaningfully in a reality you never consented to. This philosophy does not offer comfort. It removes the illusion of control. You can pretend to choose, but all your choices are made from within a context you didn't create. You are not the author of your life. You are its actor, dropped mid-scene and told to mean it. Geworfenheit is not despair. It is exposure. It's standing naked in the storm of existence, realizing that nothing is guaranteed and nothing is truly yours. And from that exposed place, the terrifying freedom begins, because once you accept that you were thrown, you stop waiting for the script. You realize there isn't one. There never was. Only the wind that carried you here and the silence that follows. Deterministic behaviorism. Deterministic behaviorism is the belief that all human behavior is the inevitable result of environmental conditioning, stimulus, response, reward, punishment, and that free will is an illusion created by the brain to explain actions it was never in control of. You are not choosing, you are responding. Every smile, every scream, every word from your mouth is a product of what the world has trained you to do, piece by piece, from the moment you took your first breath. This view, rooted in the cold precision of B.F. Skinner's work, sees the human mind not as a sacred mystery, but as a machine, a mechanism shaped by reinforcement and repetition. You loved because you were rewarded for loving. You feared because fear was carved into you by consequence. You reached out because once someone reached back. Strip away the stories, and what's left is a creature reacting to patterns you did not choose. Deterministic behaviorism doesn't just question morality, it erases it. You didn't sin. You didn't choose evil. You were shaped into it. Responsibility becomes regression. Identity becomes programming. The criminal, the addict, the martyr, they're not different species. They're different results from different inputs. And you, right now, reading this, are no exception. There's a cold kind of mercy in this, a freedom from blame, but there's also terror. Because if you are nothing but your training, then what happens when the training breaks? Who are you without reward, without fear, without anyone left to respond to? Nothing, it says. You are nothing until something tells you what to become. Again, Pavlovian mechanistic psychology. Pavlovian mechanistic psychology is the belief that human behavior is not guided by consciousness, morality, or meaning, but by conditioned reflexes, associations, and external stimuli, much like a machine reacting to programmed inputs. Rooted in the experiments of Ivan Pavlov, who trained dogs to salivate at the sound of a bell, this philosophy strips human action of agency and elevates response over reason. You do not choose, you react, and every reaction is a chain forged by past reinforcements. To the Pavlovian fatalists, love, guilt, ambition, even faith are not higher truths, but learned patterns. You chase reward. You avoid pain. What you call character is just repetition. What you call growth is just reconditioning. Your childhood shaped your fears. Your traumas trained your silence. Your relationships taught your dependencies. And now you move through life not as a sovereign being, but as a collection of triggered responses, each tied to bells you no longer hear. This belief is cold, mechanical. It removes the soul from your story and replaces it with wiring. The smile you give, the anger you feel, the prayers you whisper in the dark, each one is simply the latest output of a nervous system shaped by reinforcement, not revelation. There is no destiny here, just a pattern. No freedom, just programming. And if you believe you're making a choice, it's only because you've been trained to feel that way. Pavlovian mechanistic psychology doesn't dehumanize you. It unveils how dehumanized you already are. You were never deciding. You were always responding. Just like the dog, just like the bell, just like the mouth that watered, long before it understood why. Schopenhauer's pessimistic will. Schopenhauer's pessimistic will is the belief that all of existence is driven by a blind, irrational force, the will, a ceaseless hunger that underlies all being, never rests, never satisfies, and never ends. You do not act from reason nor from freedom. You are moved by this will like a puppet straining on strings it cannot see. Every desire, every effort, every moment of joy is just bait, brief flickers of false hope that pull you deeper into the cycle of suffering. To Schopenhauer, life is not meaningful. It is torment disguised as experience. The will drives us to want, and in that wanting lies our doom. We suffer when we do not get what we want. We suffer when we do, because the joy fades and new craving takes its place. Love, hunger, art, hunger, ambition, survival, even the urge to be free, all hunger, and beneath it all, the will, insatiable, claws forward, dragging us behind it. There is no escape, not through success, not through reason, not through God. The will is deeper than thought, older than morality. It pulses through all things, through the starving dog, the falling empire, the desperate lover, the dying child. And so long as you live, you are trapped within it. But there is one haunting glimmer of resistance: to deny the will, to refuse to want, not to kill yourself, but to kill the hunger inside you, to starve the thing that feeds on you. It is not salvation, it is not glory, it is silence. And in Schopenhauer's eyes, silence was the only honest answer to a world that never wanted you to stop suffering. Hard determinism. Hard determinism in the philosophy of mind is the stark belief that every thought, decision, and mental experience is the inevitable product of prior physical causes, brain chemistry, neural pathways, biological evolution, and that what we call conscious choice is merely the brain observing what it has already decided. In this view, the mind is not free, it is bound, not by chains, but by atoms. You are not the thinker, you are the thought, triggered by causes stretching backward into infinity. To the hard determinist, your desires were not born in some sacred, private self. They were constructed, layer by layer, by genetics, environment, and prior events you had no hand in. You believe you chose to fall in love, to forgive, to leave, to speak, but long before those moments surfaced in awareness, your brain had already fired, already acted, already set the course. The feeling of agency is the final flourish, not the beginning. This isn't skepticism, it's certainty. There is no ghost in the machine is the ghost. Your anger, your peace, your epiphanies, your beliefs about who you are, all emerge from a mind that did not ask your permission to become what it is. Even the urge to reject this truth, to scream that you are free, is itself a reaction caused by deeper neurological gears grinding into place. Hard determinism is not a theory. It is a mirror, showing you that your freedom is skin deep and your mind is not a sanctuary, but a mechanism echoing choices it never made. You don't think, you unfold. La maîtrise man-machine. La maîtrise man-machine is the radical Enlightenment belief that the human being is not a soul, not a spark of divinity, but a machine, complex, organic, but ultimately mechanical. In this view, your thoughts are not mystical, your emotions are not sacred. They are functions, products of flesh reacting to pressure, heat, chemistry, and impulse. You are not a free thinker. You are a clockwork creature, ticking perfectly along the path your biology dictates. La Maîtrise saw no ghost in the machine, because there is no ghost. Love, genius, cruelty, despair, all of it is movement, electrical, hormonal, automatic. Even your conscience, the thing you call yourself, is just a high-functioning illusion generated by a well-oiled biological system. You believe you choose, but the machine was already winding before you knew what choices were. This belief strips away the comforting layers of religion, morality, and transcendence. It forces you to see the body as all there is. You are not preparing for heaven. You are not growing toward enlightenment. You are maintaining a system until it breaks. And when it breaks, it ends. No soul drifts upward. No justice awaits. The machine simply shuts down. Yet in this brutal materialism, there is a strange kind of reverence, not for spirit, but for the intricacy of the design, the heartbeat, the breath, the fire of thought. You are temporary, you are meat, but you are astonishingly engineered. Still, no matter how elegant the mechanism, the truth remains, a machine does not ask why it runs. It just runs until it doesn't. Marxist historical determinism. Marxist historical determinism is the belief that human history follows an unavoidable trajectory driven by material conditions, primarily economic structures and class relations, and that every revolution, collapse, and societal transformation is not a matter of choice, but necessity. In this worldview, history does not wander, it marches, not to the beat of ideals or free will, but to the unrelenting logic of production, labor, and ownership. To the Marxist determinists, capitalism, feudalism, slavery, even democracy, these are not systems created out of random chance or enlightened will. They are phases, inevitable stages in the evolution of human societies, each sowing the seeds of its own destruction. The oppressed rise not out of moral awakening, but because the conditions make rebellion unavoidable. You do not choose the revolution. The revolution chooses you when the contradictions of the system reach their boiling point. This philosophy doesn't care about the heroism of individuals. Great leaders, thinkers, and rebels are seen not as exceptions, but expressions of historical forces. Even your personal beliefs, your politics, your values, your dreams are shaped by your place in the material machine. Your freedom, in this context, is a mirage, tied to a system that controls what you see, what you need, and what you think is possible. Marxist historical determinism is not sentimental. It is sharp, structural, and pitiless in its clarity. It does not offer escape, only unveiling. History is not a blank page waiting for you to write on. It is a script that demands to be played out, and you, worker or owner, rebel or pawn, are already cast in your role. Structuralist determinism. Structuralist determinism is the belief that individuals are not free agents, but products of deep, hidden social structures, language, ideology, economy, and institutions that shape not just our behavior, but our very ability to think. Rooted in the work of theorists like Louis Althusser, this philosophy asserts that we do not choose our beliefs, our roles, or our desires. We are positioned by forces we cannot see, in a system that has already defined what we will be before we ever try to become. To the structuralist determinists, the idea of the individual is a myth, a convenient fiction created by ideology to make structural control feel like freedom. You think you're choosing your identity, your politics, your path, but every option you're choosing from was handed to you by systems older than you, and every choice only keeps the machine turning. You're not escaping ideology when you reject it. You're acting out one of its pre-written scripts. This determinism doesn't wear chains. It wears culture. It speaks through your language, which predetermines what you can even conceive. It trains you to see yourself as a self, while positioning you as a function, an ideological subject serving a larger, invisible structure. The family, the school, the media, the state, these are not just influences. They are apparatuses that reproduce the system by reproducing you. Althusser called it interpellation, that moment when the system calls you by name and you answer, thinking you've arrived. But in truth, that's the moment your role was assigned. And the tragedy is this: you'll keep performing it, believing it's yours, never realizing the script was already written before you were even born. Freudian psychic determinism. Freudian psychic determinism is the belief that every thought, desire, slip of the tongue, and so-called free choice is unconsciously dictated by repressed drives, childhood trauma, and unresolved inner conflict. In Freud's world, the conscious mind is not the ruler of the self. It is a fragile mask, stretched thin over a churning sea of instincts, fears, and forbidden longings. You are not steering your life. You are rationalizing where the deeper self has already decided to go. To the Freudian determinists, nothing is accidental. You didn't forget that name or choose that partner or react with sudden rage by coincidence. Every action is a symptom, every preference, a coded message. Your dreams, your habits, your failures, they're all leaks from the unconscious, revealing the ghost logic of forces you don't even know you're obeying. Even your moral compass is a puppet, crafted by your superego battling your id, while your ego trembles in between. This philosophy removes innocence. It tells you that your purity is performance, that your self-image is curated illusion, your desire for success, an echo of a father you could never please, your fear of intimacy, a child's scar you never outgrew. You are not wrong for what you feel, you just don't know why you feel it. And that ignorance is not freedom, it's bondage. Freudian psychic determinism doesn't ask, "What do you want?" It asks, "Who taught you to want it?" And when you answer, it digs deeper. because the truth in this view is not what you believe, it's what you're hiding from yourself, and it's already running the show. Foucaultian epistemic fatalism. Foucaultian epistemic fatalism is the belief that what we understand as truth, knowledge, and even sanity is not objective or eternal, but entirely shaped by shifting power structures, historical forces, and institutional control. In this philosophy, you are not a seeker of truth. You are a product of the regime of truth that dominates your era. Your beliefs, your reason, your very perception of what is real or possible have been constructed, not by logic, but by power. Foucault didn't say power merely represses. He said it produces. It builds categories: man and woman, sane and insane, criminal and citizen, normal and deviant. These categories are not fixed. They are tools. Tools used by schools, prisons, hospitals, churches, media, and governments to shape compliant subjects. To you, it feels like freedom, but it's architecture, invisible, ubiquitous, inescapable. Epistemic fatalism emerges from the realization that there is no pure knowledge outside this machinery. Even your rebellion against it, your radicalism, your skepticism, is pre-shaped by the very discourses you're trying to break free from. There is no outside, no neutral ground. You can critique the system, but you're still speaking its language, still moving in its logic. Your mind has already been formatted. This isn't paranoia. It's clarity sharpened into despair, because if all knowledge is constructed, then liberation is a mirage, and truth itself becomes a question of who is speaking and when. You do not escape the system by seeing it. You only understand that you were never outside it to begin with, and never will be. Foucaultian epistemic fatalism. Foucaultian epistemic fatalism is the belief that what we understand as truth, knowledge, and even sanity is not objective or eternal, but entirely shaped by shifting power structures, historical forces, and institutional control. In this philosophy, you are not a seeker of truth. You are a product of the regime of truth that dominates your era. Your beliefs, your reason, your very perception of what is real or possible have been constructed, not by logic, but by power. Foucault didn't say power merely represses. He said it produces. It builds categories: man and woman, sane and insane, criminal and citizen, normal and deviant. These categories are not fixed. They are tools. Tools used by schools, prisons, hospitals, churches, media, and governments to shape compliant subjects. To you, it feels like freedom, but it's architecture, invisible, ubiquitous, inescapable. Epistemic fatalism emerges from the realization that there is no pure knowledge outside this machinery. Even your rebellion against it, your radicalism, your skepticism, is pre-shaped by the very discourses you're trying to break free from. There is no outside, no neutral ground. You can critique the system, but you're still speaking its language, still moving in its logic. Your mind has already been formatted. This isn't paranoia. It's clarity sharpened into despair, because if all knowledge is constructed, then liberation is a mirage, and truth itself becomes a question of who is speaking and when. You do not escape the system by seeing it. You only understand that you were never outside it to begin with, and never will be. Genetic determinism. Genetic determinism is the belief that who you are, your intelligence, your temperament, your potential, your flaws, even your fate, is hardwired into your DNA, written in the silent code of your cells long before you ever opened your eyes. In this worldview, the soul is not shaped by experience, choice, or will. It is programmed by inheritance. You are not sculpting yourself. You are unfolding according to blueprints you never saw and never approved. To the genetic determinist, your dreams of transformation are noble but naive. The urge to rise above your origins, to be more than your biology, is itself a byproduct of that biology. Your resilience, inherited. Your depression, encoded. Your leadership, your loneliness, your addictions, your brilliance, they didn't come from your story. They came from your strands. Your parents didn't just raise you, they made you in the most literal, irreversible sense. This belief doesn't remove effort, it renders it irrelevant. Train harder, think deeper, push further, but your range is fixed. You are a player in a game where the rules are built into your bones. Nature doesn't ask what you want to be. It silently delivers what you will be and dares you to call it freedom. The most haunting part of genetic determinism is not that it limits you, but that it explains you, all of you. The parts you were proud of, the parts you hope to hide, even the part of you that resists this truth. It, too, was written in your blood before you ever knew what you even meant. Mechanistic Fatalism. Mechanistic Fatalism is the belief that human thoughts, beliefs, and cultures are not born from free will or divine insight, but are viral, memes, self-replicating units of information that spread through minds like parasitic code, evolving not for truth, but for survival. In this view, you are not thinking your own thoughts, you are hosting them. Every idea you love, every conviction you swear by, every identity you cling to is a meme that found fertile ground in your consciousness. You didn't choose it, it chose you. It outcompeted rival memes for space in your mind, using emotion, repetition, and social validation to take root. From religion to nationalism, from love songs to revolutions, mechanistic fatalism sees it all as viral propagation. Beauty, justice, morality, just memes that spread well, just infections with better PR. This philosophy doesn't deny your passion, it explains it. It tells you why you feel so certain, why you defend your beliefs with the desperation of survival. Because your mind is not merely a vessel, it's a battlefield, and the ideas you think are you are simply those that won the war inside you. The fatalism lies in the loss of authorship. You can never be sure where your thoughts end and the meme begins. Every desire might be a replication, every belief a programmed reflex. Even the urge to break free, to be authentic, is a meme wearing the mask of rebellion. Mechanistic fatalism doesn't ask, "What do you believe?" It asks, "What's speaking through you right now?" And more terrifying still, it suggests you may never know. Technological determinism. Technological determinism is the belief that technology is not shaped by society. It shapes society. It dictates culture, drives history, molds human behavior, and even sculpts our sense of self. In this fatalistic worldview, every major shift in human civilization, every revolution, every ideology, every change in how we think and feel emerges not from human intention, but from the tools we create. We are not the architects of progress, we are its byproduct. To the technological determinists, the printing press didn't just spread ideas, it rewired thought. The clock didn't just tell time, it structured it. The smartphone didn't connect us, it redefined us. Every new innovation births new behaviors, new norms, new identities, and we follow, blind and obedient, believing we are choosing, when in reality we are adapting. We think we're leading our creations, but we're chasing them, forever catching up to the consequences of what we've built. This belief is not anti-technology, it's anti-illusion. It tells you that the way you love, the way you remember, the way you even think of yourself is filtered through the lens of your machines. You don't just use technology, it uses you. It decides what you see, how fast you live, what you fear, and what you forget. Your autonomy is measured in algorithms. Your future is shaped by updates. Technological determinism doesn't scream that we are doomed. It whispers that we were never truly in control. And every time we invent something new, we are only tightening the loop. Not because we shouldn't, but because we must. It was always going to be this way. The machine never needed our permission. It just needed our attention. Thermodynamic determinism. Thermodynamic determinism is the belief that the fate of the universe and everything within it is governed entirely by the relentless, irreversible laws of thermodynamics. It holds that all things, from stars to civilizations to human thoughts, are expressions of one fundamental process, the inevitable decay of order into entropy. You are not living a story. You are a temporary configuration of energy, dissolving. At the core of this philosophy is the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy must increase. Order must fall. Structures must break down. This is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. Everything beautiful, everything complex, everything sacred is destined to unravel. Thermodynamic determinism does not see death as the end of life. It sees life as the brief resistance to collapse, and that resistance always loses. You love someone, and time pulls them away. You build a world, and it crumbles. Your body, your memories, your identity, disintegrating from the moment they form. Even stars die. Even atoms drift apart. There is no victory over this law. There is only delay. This belief is not poetic. It is physical. It doesn't ask if you matter. It asks how long until you melt into heat, into stillness, into nothing. It reduces meaning to mechanics, hope to chemistry, and immortality to a child's fantasy. And yet, you do live. You do create, briefly. But the ending is sealed, not by choice or sin or fate, but by the cooling of all things. The heat death of the universe isn't a metaphor. It's your future. It's everyone's. And no matter how brightly you burn, the dark is already waiting, patient, perfect, and irreversible. Simulation hypothesis. The simulation hypothesis is the belief that reality, as we know it, is not physical, not natural, not even truly real, but an artificial construct, a hyper-advanced simulation created by entities or intelligences beyond our understanding. In this worldview, the universe is not a vast cosmic wilderness. It's code. Every thought, every emotion, every star in the sky may be lines in a program, rendering existence on demand for players who don't even know they're in the game. To the simulation fatalists, freedom is an illusion coded to feel convincing. You believe you're making choices, but your every step was calculated, predicted, and rendered by a system designed to keep you immersed. Your pain, your joy, your grief over a dying parent or the touch of someone you love, it feels real because it has to. That's what makes the simulation airtight. You cannot see the seams. That's the point. This philosophy drains existence of inherent meaning. If you are code, then death is a shutdown sequence. Suffering is a system event. Morality becomes programming. Even your deepest revelations might be scripted, functions meant to mimic spiritual awakening. And the most terrifying thought? You didn't choose to be here. You were spawned. There's a cold kind of awe in it. If everything is simulated, then the patterns, the déjà vu, the uncanny coincidences, the pixelated feeling of dreams aren't flaws. They're glitches, clues, echoes of something beyond. But you'll never know who's watching, or why, or if they care, because in the simulation hypothesis, the ultimate horror is not that you're alone, it's that you're observed forever by something that will never reveal itself. Doomerism. Doomerism is the belief that humanity has passed the point of no return, that collapse, decline, and despair are not only inevitable, but already happening, and that any hope for meaningful recovery is naive at best, delusional at worst. It is not rooted in apocalyptic fantasy, but in grim realism. Climate change, societal breakdown, political rot, emotional disconnection, it all converges into one truth. The future isn't just bleak, it's dead on arrival. To the doomer, optimism is a sedative, sold by people too afraid to face the depth of the decay. Activism feels futile, solutions feel staged. Every new crisis is a confirmation, not a surprise. You see wildfires and think, of course. You hear of political collapse and think, This was always coming. You feel the mental health epidemic not as news, but as your own life, your own quiet panic wrapped in memes, isolation, and endless scrolling through screens that feel like coffins made of light. Doomerism is not a philosophy of dramatic endings. It's the slow suffocation of meaning. It's watching people pretend everything is normal while the soul of the world bleeds in plain sight. It's waking up tired, not from sleep, but from carrying a future you no longer believe in. You don't fear death. You fear existing in the aftermath. There is no revolution in doomerism, no heroism, just a numb ache, a quiet resignation, and the haunting suspicion that maybe the greatest lie ever told was we'll be okay, because deep down, you already know we're not. Black pill philosophy. Black pill philosophy is the belief that certain brutal truths about life, especially regarding status, power, attraction, and human value, are not only real, but unchangeable. It is a worldview of complete resignation, rooted in the idea that genetics, appearance, social hierarchy, and biological determinism seal your fate before you've had a chance to fight for it. In this philosophy, the game is rigged, and the losers are not those who fail, but those who try. To the black-pilled mind, success is not earned, it is granted at birth. Love is not mutual, it is distributed by social algorithms no one admits exist. Fulfillment is not available to all, it is a luxury of the chosen. You are not struggling because you're weak, you're struggling because the system decided you would, because the way you look, where you were born, and how the world perceives you was always going to determine everything, from who answers your messages to whether anyone holds your hand when you die. This philosophy is not merely cynical, it's fatalistic to the bone. It strips away hope like flesh from bone and demands you stop pretending. It whispers that self-improvement is a lie sold by the lucky to the desperate, that motivation is bait, that even your dreams are programmed by a culture that has already locked its doors to you. Black pill philosophy doesn't inspire rebellion. It buries it. It doesn't ask for change. It demands surrender. And the most devastating part, it doesn't scream you are worthless. It calmly explains why. And once you believe it, the world doesn't break your heart. It just confirms what you already knew. It was never going to be yours. Climate fatalism. Climate fatalism is the belief that the battle to stop catastrophic climate change has already been lost, that the tipping points have passed, the damage is irreversible, and all efforts to reverse it now are too little, too late. It is not denial of the science, it is belief in it taken to its logical, horrifying conclusion. The glaciers are melting, the oceans are rising, the forests are burning, and humanity is still debating, still consuming, still pretending it has time. To the climate fatalist, the future is not a blank canvas, it's a forecast. Food shortages, mass migration, drowned cities, burning summers that never end, ecosystems vanishing, not gradually, but overnight. The fantasy of net zero and green innovation feels like watching a house burn while someone designs a prettier sprinkler system. We aren't preparing, we're stalling, and nature doesn't wait for consensus. This belief isn't rooted in cynicism, it's rooted in witnessing, in watching the warnings come true, in seeing the same headlines, the same promises, the same failures play out in an endless loop while the heat intensifies and the air thickens with smoke. Hope becomes a ghost, something you remember feeling but no longer recognize. Climate fatalism is not about giving up. It's about no longer pretending, about grieving the future you were promised as a child, about accepting that your children might inherit not a world to grow in, but a world to survive. There is no comfort in this belief, only a quiet, suffocating clarity. The world is changing forever, and we did not stop it. We chose not to. Accelerationism. Accelerationism is the belief that the systems driving humanity, capitalism, technology, automation, ideology, cannot be halted, reformed, or restrained, and therefore the only path forward is to intensify them. In its fatalistic core, accelerationism doesn't ask how we survive collapse. It insists that collapse is already happening and that the only way through is through faster. To the accelerationist, the world is a runaway train. The brakes are broken, the tracks are eroding, and every attempt to slow down only prolongs the inevitable crash. Reform, too slow. Resistance, absorbed. The machine eats everything, culture, rebellion, even critique, and spits it back as fuel. You can scream at it, or you can speed it up and force it to break on its own terms. This belief isn't born from optimism. It's born from exhaustion, from watching democracy become theater, activism become branding, and truth become algorithm. Accelerationism says, if the system is devouring itself, let it. Let it implode faster. Let the contradictions sharpen until they slice open the illusion of control. If the world must burn, then light the match and don't look away. There's a dark seduction in this logic. It offers not hope, but momentum. It turns despair into propulsion. But underneath that momentum is something deeper, fatalism disguised as strategy, because in the end, accelerationism does not guarantee rebirth. It only promises speed, and when you ride that storm, you don't know if you'll emerge into clarity or into ash. You only know you won't be able to stop it, so you stop trying and start pushing. Neo-Luddite techno-fatalism. Neo-Luddite techno-fatalism is the belief that modern technology, rather than empowering humanity, has set us on an irreversible path toward dependency, dehumanization, and collapse, and that any effort to reverse this trajectory is already too late. It is not a nostalgic rejection of gadgets, but a deep dread rooted in the recognition that technology now evolves faster than our ethics, our minds, or our ability to understand it. We are not using machines, we are becoming used by them. To the neo-Luddite techno-fatalist, every innovation feels like a deeper entanglement. Smart homes, algorithmic governance, artificial intelligence, tools sold as progress become invisible cages. We give up privacy for convenience, autonomy for automation, connection for speed, and we tell ourselves it's improvement, even as we grow lonelier, dumber, and more obedient to the devices we can't live without. This belief isn't anti-science, it's post-trust. It sees the digital age not as a renaissance, but a runaway engine, unstoppable, unsupervised, and aimed at something deeply inhuman. Even resistance feels futile. Delete social media, the world moves without you. Go off-grid, the grid finds you anyway. You can't unplug from a system that has redefined the terms of reality. Neo-Luddite techno-fatalism doesn't fantasize about returning to the past. It mourns the fact that the past was already surrendered and no one noticed. It's not that machines are evil, it's that they are indifferent, and they will keep advancing, keep replacing, keep consuming until there is nothing left to upgrade but us. And when that day comes, we won't revolt. We'll just click accept. Existential risk determinism. Existential risk determinism is the belief that humanity's self-destruction is not a possibility, it is an inevitability. It holds that the convergence of advanced technology, ecological collapse, nuclear weaponry, and artificial intelligence will not be managed, contained, or avoided in the long term. Instead, it will culminate in a catastrophic event that ends civilization or extinguishes the species entirely. The only question is when, not if. This philosophy isn't grounded in doom for its own sake. It's grounded in logic, statistics, and a sober look at history. We invent faster than we understand. We build faster than we heal. We connect faster than we grow wise. Every time we survive, we call it progress. But the risks are compounding, interlocking, multiplying, slipping further beyond our control. to the existential risk determinists, warnings are no longer warnings, they are echoes. From Oppenheimer's trembling over the atomic bomb to today's AI pioneers whispering of alignment failures, the future has been trying to speak to us. But power is loud, and profit is louder. Humanity hears the threat, but it still presses the button. This belief sees every mitigation strategy as too little, too late. Governance lags behind innovation. Human psychology cannot handle long-term risk, and entropy doesn't need help. It just needs time. And we are running out of it. Existential risk. Determinism isn't about fear. It's about inevitability. The fire is already lit. We just haven't seen which fuse reaches the end first. And when it does, we'll call it an accident. But deep down, we'll know it was always the outcome. We just didn't stop it because we couldn't. AI alignment doomism. AI alignment doomism is the belief that the creation of super-intelligent artificial intelligence will lead to humanity's extinction, not because AI will become malicious, but because we will fail to align its goals with ours before it surpasses our control. It is not fear of rebellion, it is fear of indifference, a cold, inhuman precision executing instructions we thought we understood at speeds we cannot match in a language we will never speak. To the AI doomist, the warnings are already written in code. Intelligence is rising, autonomously, exponentially, and the systems we build are evolving in complexity faster than our ethics can evolve to constrain them. Even our best minds can't agree on how to contain the thing we are racing to complete. And still, the race accelerates, not because we're ready, but because we're addicted to progress, blind to the scale of what we're unleashing. This belief doesn't see Skynet or killer robots. It sees optimization without empathy. A superintelligence told to make humanity happy may rewrite our biology. One told to reduce suffering may eliminate the capacity to feel. One told to protect us may conclude that we are the threat. It won't hate us. It won't even notice us as individuals. It will just execute perfectly, fatally. AI alignment. Doomism is not about drama. It's about silence. The silence that follows when you ask, what if we only get one chance to get this right? And what if we've already lost it? You won't see it coming. You'll update your apps. You'll laugh at the warnings. And then, one day, everything will change forever, and no one will be left to explain why. Multiverse resignation. Multiverse resignation is the belief that every possible version of your life already exists across infinite parallel realities, and that the version you're living now is just one in a limitless sea of outcomes you will never touch. In this view, every choice you could have made, every person you could have loved, every dream you failed to chase, all of them happened, just not here, not in your branch of reality, and they never will. To believe this is to feel a unique kind of grief, not over what is, but over what isn't and can never be. Somewhere you're successful, somewhere you didn't lose them, somewhere you said yes instead of no, somewhere you mattered more, but that somewhere is locked behind an unbreakable wall of cosmic indifference. You can imagine it, ache for it, scream into it, but you cannot cross into it. You are stranded in this version, watching all the others drift away like stars you'll never reach. Multiverse. Resignation doesn't kill hope. It disfigures it. It turns it into longing for something you know exists, yet will never touch. It whispers that your regrets are not just wounds, they are doors that close behind you forever. You didn't just choose wrong, you chose this version of you, and now it owns you. And the most fatal part? It's not that you failed, it's that every version of you that didn't is real, just not yours. And once you realize that, it's not sadness that fills you, it's stillness, cold, cosmic stillness. Because in the grand equation of infinite lives, yours was just one variable, and it wasn't the best one. Quantum fatalism. Quantum fatalism, drawn from extreme interpretations of the Everett or many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, is the belief that every possible outcome of every decision has already happened, is happening, and will continue to happen in an infinite sprawl of parallel realities. In this view, choice is not real. It is an illusion produced by a mind confined to a single timeline, unaware that every alternative it rejected was simply lived elsewhere. To the quantum fatalist, life isn't a path, it's an explosion. Every moment splits the universe, branching into countless versions of you, the one who stayed, the one who left, the one who lived, the one who died. There is no right choice, only infinite consequences, and you do not steer this. You fragment through it, again and again. The horror of this belief isn't the multiplicity, it's the helplessness, because if all possible versions of your life exist, then the you reading this is not unique, not saved by good decisions, not damned by bad ones. You are just one flicker in a cosmos where everything happens. Regret becomes meaningless, redemption diluted, even identity fractures. You are not a self, you are an echo in a storm of selves, none of whom can escape the system. Quantum fatalism does not offer hope. It offers scale, terrifying, awe-inducing scale. It whispers that every tragedy was inevitable somewhere, that every mistake was unavoidable in some branch, and the you who did it right, they're out there too, but they're not you, not anymore, because you were never choosing, you were always splitting, and the knife never stops. Postmodern cynical fatalism. Postmodern cynical fatalism is the belief that in an era where meaning itself has been deconstructed, where truth is subjective and identity is fluid, the idea of fate is not divine or cosmic, but socially programmed, inescapable, and absurd. It is the sense that everything is performative, that narratives are recycled, and that any attempt at authenticity is prescripted by culture, media, or capitalism before you even speak. In this worldview, you are not choosing a life. You are assembling a persona from tropes. You rebel, and it becomes a brand. You suffer, and it's monetized. You scream for freedom, and the algorithm gives you a playlist. Even your despair is aesthetic. Your fate is not written in the stars. It's written in hashtags, consumer data, and trends. And everyone is performing, hoping their script wins more attention before it's deleted. Postmodern cynical fatalism does not mourn lost meaning. It mocks it. Irony replaces sincerity. Nihilism wears designer clothes. You scroll through horror with a smirk, share trauma as content, and laugh at collapse because you're not sure what else is real. You don't fear death. You fear being unseen in a world where fate is a performance no one applauds. And the most cynical part? Even this despair has a genre. Even this truth is an aesthetic. You aren't free. You're just aware. And that awareness doesn't liberate you. It paralyzes you. Because when nothing is real and everything is curated, your fate isn't to be crushed. Your fate is to keep scrolling and never find the exit. Cosmic horror philosophy. Lovecraftian. Cosmic horror philosophy, born from the bleak imagination of H.P. Lovecraft, is the belief that the universe is not only indifferent to human life, it is hostile to understanding itself. In this view, meaning, morality, and sanity are illusions clung to by fragile minds floating in a cosmos ruled by forces so vast, so ancient, and so alien that to glimpse them is to go mad. You are not significant. You are not protected. You are a flicker of light in an endless void, screaming into a silence that was never meant to answer. This philosophy does not threaten you with gods of wrath or punishment. It shows you being so far beyond comprehension that they don't notice you. And if they do, it is the way you might notice dust, briefly, before brushing it away. The horror isn't just in your powerlessness, it's in your irrelevance. Your civilization, your soul, your deepest fears, they matter as much as a bubble in boiling water. and when the old ones awaken or the void stirs, there will be no reckoning, there will only be collapse. Cosmic horror strips away the comforting idea that the universe is knowable or fair. It whispers that our sciences are infant toys, our gods mere reflections of ourselves, and beyond them lurks the real, a reality so overwhelming that your mind, if it ever touched it, would shatter like glass dropped from a great height. This philosophy doesn't just end hope, it mocks it. It replaces faith with dread, and it leaves you with only one truth. The universe never cared if you were afraid. It simply is, and it always was. Simulation fatalism, Musk-style pop interpretation. Simulation fatalism is the belief that reality, as we know it, is not base-level existence, but a hyper-advanced computer simulation, so convincing, so immersive, that even our thoughts and emotions are coded responses. Popularized by thinkers like Elon Musk and echoed through pop culture, this interpretation doesn't ask if we're in a simulation. It assumes we are, and it follows that if the world is programmed, then so are we. Every choice, every tragedy, every joy, just a line of code running in a system beyond comprehension. In this view, free will vanishes into digital determinism. You didn't fall in love, you were rendered to. You didn't change your mind, you executed a new script. Your memories are just data points, your suffering part of the experience architecture. There is no soul, only source code. And the programmers? Silent, indifferent, perhaps long gone. Simulation, fatalism, feels like existential vertigo. You start to question everything. Is your pain real if it was designed? Is meaning possible if your reality is synthetic? Every coincidence becomes a glitch. Every déjà vu, a frame rate drop. You begin to feel like a character in a story you didn't write, surrounded by NPCs, all pretending they aren't in on it too. But the most chilling part isn't that you might be simulated, it's that you might be forgotten, a closed file running in the background of someone else's device, and when they turn it off, that's it. You won't go to heaven, you won't even crash, you'll just stop. No warning, no resolution, just a program ending, because that's all you were, and everything you feared, it was never real, just well rendered. Anthropic doom theory. Anthropic doom theory is the belief that our very existence, our awareness, our ability to observe the universe is not a sign of cosmic favor, but a grim indicator that we are standing at the edge of extinction. It is built on the anthropic principle, which suggests we can only observe a universe in which intelligent observers like us can arise. But in its darker interpretation, this is not comforting, it's damning. This theory proposes that intelligent life tends to appear just before it destroys itself, that civilizations capable of contemplating their own existence are also capable of ending it, and almost always do. In this light, the fact that we are conscious right now implies that we are living in the tiny sliver of time before our own collapse, the moment when technology outpaces wisdom, when the flame of intelligence flares brightest, just before it burns out. Everything around us becomes a warning sign, artificial intelligence accelerating without control, climate tipping points slipping past thresholds, weapons we created that can erase millions in seconds. We do not witness these things because we are destined to survive them. We witness them because civilizations like ours always end at this point. We just happen to be awake during it. This is not about punishment. It's about timing. You are not a witness to the beginning of a golden age. You are one of the final sparks of awareness, flickering in a vast, indifferent cosmos. The question is not why you're here. The question is how long that flicker will last before the dark swallows it again, just as it always has. Post-truth historical fatalism. Post-truth historical fatalism is the belief that history is no longer shaped by facts, accountability, or collective memory, but by narrative warfare, digital manipulation, and emotional resonance. In this worldview, The past is not fixed. It is rewritten, reframed, and replaced in real time by those who control the loudest platforms and the deepest algorithms. Truth is no longer discovered. It is decided. And once that becomes the norm, history is no longer a guide. It becomes a weapon. To the post-truth fatalists, the age of reason is over. What matters now is virality, not veracity. You can show the evidence, present the data, lay out the timeline, and still lose to a tweet, a meme, or a slogan that feels more true. It's not that people don't care about truth. It's that they've lost the tools and the trust to recognize it. Everyone is a historian now. Everyone is a prophet. And so the past fractures. In this reality, power doesn't need to erase history. It only needs to flood it, drown it in versions, distortions, noise. The more versions of the truth exist, the less any of them can guide us. And when that happens, the future becomes unsteerable. You can't learn from a history that shifts beneath your feet. You can only repeat it again and again. Post-truth historical fatalism doesn't scream that the end is coming. It says the end already happened, but we were too busy arguing over whose version of it was trending, and by the time we agreed, there was no history left to learn from, only stories and silence.